Memories. Memories. Got lots of love, love. 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 Got lots of love, love.
Hello and welcome back to day 2 of Kunoichi Kommotion. I'm over here in EU this time. I'm back in my home region, baby. They've got me off those 3 a.m. NA casts and I am free at last. It feels good to be back where I don't have to be awake until ungodly hours of the morning. Joining me today is Shadowfang for our first match. I am Willow. How are you feeling?
Honestly, I'm pretty excited to see what the Kunoichi side has to show because I've never casted one of these matches before, so I just want to see what the EU side in particular has to do and if it's going to be that more brawl-centric types of comps. I mean, I would honestly expect to see something along the lines of the Orisa comps that I've seen all over the place recently.
Yeah. I mean, it's what we saw a lot of yesterday, particularly from these teams. Meta Girls, as per their name suggests, are going to be playing a lot of just Orisa, Sojourn, Tracer, basically the whole series, I do believe. The Drainers as well, they've said that they favor a little bit of dive, but we've not really seen much Winston actually coming out in our previous streams. Nevertheless, when we did see Meta Girls yesterday, it was kind of just against Green Fortnite, who is definitely the favorite going into today, and it can be difficult to look good going against the very best team. It was the same for Chengdu Drainers. They went against Yas, who didn't qualify, and then against Green Fortnite, who, again, are the favourites still. So this is really going to be the test of which of these teams really deserves to be making their way through the upper bracket of our playoffs in particular. When these teams met yesterday off-stream, it was a very close match with Meta Girls actually taking it in the end, and we can see here some of their lineup. Iridescent, Emilia, Hitori, Seika, and Santix. These are teams, or players, with a history behind them. They're not unfamiliar to people who are used to the marginalized gender scene, calling all heroes in particular. And, I mean, you can kind of see why they're able to find so much success so far, even if we're playing against teams like the Chengdu Drainers, who, they've got a very impressive roster indeed.
Yeah, definitely. You can see you got Kindred running that tank, Senna and Hickey on that DPS line, and then you got Poryu and Aramori rocking that support lineup. And you can see all of their favorite heroes listed out here. I believe we'll only be seeing the Lucio coming out, though. Maybe we'll get lucky and see a Genji, but it's going to be tough to play anything besides that Lucio, Kiri, Orisa composition that we're seeing so often. You almost have to mirror it when one team plays it.
Yeah, Kindred in particular we know is fond of the Junker Queen and the Ramatra. She did try a little bit of Ram yesterday against Green Fortnite, but it didn't fully pan out in the end, eventually just going back over to the Orisa that's familiar. We've seen Bon as well from Green Fortnite run the Genji, and I can vouch for H-Keys. She was my coach for a period, and I know that she's got it in her to be able to bring it out if needs be, but at the end of the day, the Tracer is just offering the same thing that everything in this Orisa meta is offering, which is consistency, reliability, familiarity. It's just something you can go back to and know, yeah, it'll probably work like 9 times out of 10, rather than some of these other heroes, which maybe you can force if you want, but you don't really need to.
Yeah, I mean, Tracer just always seems to find her way into the meta in some way, shape, or form. It's just, to me at least, that hero has the most skill expression of any hero in the game. But we do have our first map pick up and running, so I'm kind of excited to see what these two teams are going to do on Samoa.
Yeah, starting on Samoa, we can see the map pool just over here. It was Meta Girls who picked the map as the highest seed going into this series. Obviously, then it's going to be loser pick going forward, so you're not going to be able to rely on that if you're supposedly the better team going on from here. And it is first to 3 throughout the rest of this playoffs bracket, so no more of the first 2 quick series that we had during the round robin. That also means Escort is in the pool for those teams, especially in NA, who were floating the idea of having a little bit of a more interesting compositional choice if they get to Escort. We're going to see a little bit of change perhaps coming through. But starting out on Samoa in particular, I'm still yesterday brained. It's going to be interesting to see why Meta Girls have gone for that in particular, because for me, Samoa is a map that, compared to maps like Nepal and Busan, if you wanted to run the Orisa, you could, but I feel like, like some of those sub-maps, they leave openings for things like the Sigma, or maybe something like the Pharah, like Diva compositions that we've seen to kind of come through if they really wanted to.
You definitely could for sure. When I see Samoa, I see it as kind of like a flat area type of map that's going to force one team to just kind of bulldoze their way into the other one. You can't really sit back too much just due to it being a control map and the way that it's set up. Like, so I think it's going to be a really good pick for the Orisa comps in particular, just due to the fact that you kind of, in order to really make progress, you kind of just have to int with Orisa and just try and do something.
That is kind of the style that we've seen so far, is just like push really hard, see if you can force resources, try and get something out. And it's something that Metagirls have been doing really well. You can see that they have an understanding of the meta and how to play it so far. Chengdu Drainers, perhaps favoring different kinds of styles of composition, haven't looked quite as dominant on it comparatively. I think they're coming into this playoffs bracket as the 3rd seed, so they do have something to prove, even in spite of the raw star power that they do have on their team. But if there was ever a time to prove it, it would be during the playoffs bracket.
Well, it appears as though we have NA ping right now, so we're probably going to have to reset that server real quick, you know.
Someone had it on best available. This is one of the funny things about having like Kunoichi coming through and having like an EU and NA bracket. All the players from the Drainers are actually still NA players, so the server has defaulted to NA at the end of the day. But Metagirls, I believe, are primarily EU, as far as I'm aware. I don't believe we've got 4 NA teams in the EU bracket, but, you know, that would be funny if we did.
I mean, and with it being an EU bracket, like, I would think we're going to set it to EU regardless. You know, it's an EU bracket, you know, you may as well.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a ping competition, right? At the end of the day, if you are going to run like 4 NA teams, well, which of you is better at playing on ping? I've done it before. It's not that difficult, right? 130, 180 milliseconds.
Yeah, I mean, I've subbed in for some EU teams before. It's really not that big of a difference. The only thing you notice is like the little ticks that you get on your sound cues are like a little bit later.
Yeah.
It kind of throws you off if you're trying to like rail people with Sojourn, because it happens like a second later than you think it's going to.
There are a few wacky cooldowns in there as well that like behave a little bit differently. Brig Shield like has some really weird interactions with ping. Maywall as well. It's like if you're playing something like that, it can throw you off just a little bit, but you make the adjustment, you'll be fine. You know, if you're playing in an EU tournament, you scrim on EU servers unless you want to just take the disadvantage. And hey, at that point, that's on you. So, Metagirls at the moment hovering a little bit of something new, but are you expecting it to stay?
Probably not, no. But if you are going to do this, just play all the turret characters. Just get Alari out too, you know, like just do all of them. Play like Maga too, just everything that shoots something, you know, just do that.
We'll see if they stick on it as we get out of the gates here, and it does look like at the moment they're going to be committing. Iridescent goes over to the Tracer, doesn't want to stick onto the Symmetra entirely. You know, it's going to be a little bit easier to get on top of Amelia, perhaps, with that Torbjorn being a little bit more immobile compared to the rest of the composition, and already the turret taken out is going to give a lot more freedom for HK to be able to get onto the backline of Metagirls. We know that Tracer can be deadly if left unmarked. It's going to have to be Iridescent who's doing a good job of keeping them forced back, we can see already. Having to take a little bit more of a passive stance as the Drainers. Senna gets caught out a little bit too aggressive there as Kindred forward compared to the rest of the backline, and now Metagirls get to take the space for themselves and find that initial cap on the objective.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen the best player get a kill, the Torb turret, with the opening pick and just really setting this fight off for the Metagirls, and then they're just going to clean up the rest of these kills. Oh, the spawn kill. Oh.
Senna goes over to the Cassidy just to make sure that you've got something like the magnetic grenade to maybe try and slow down the pace that Metagirls wants to be playing at, but ultimately this Winston composition, it's perhaps not the meta. They are not living up to their namesake, but we've seen it work before. The pain point for me is still going to be this Torbjorn. Nonetheless, having this character who's just going to be vulnerable Seika, having to play back with the Torb constantly, but it should just be free pickings for someone to get on top of. Kindred's gold already forced out early, but Hitori's bubble is gone as well, which means the Metagirls are not going to be able to fully aggress in the way they want. You can see Iridescent setting up along these sidelines, builds up to the pulse bomb, manages to get Poryu to about half, and a nice stick onto Senna, but the Suzu is there to counteract it. Now that resource is out, there would be the opportunity for Metagirls to try and get on top of the Chengdu Drainers, but Hitori is so low, 93% to the primal, but not quite close enough. Senna picks up 2 and the turret. Iridescent able to trade 1 back onto Kindred, and now tanks out entirely from both teams, but it is going to be Drainers finding the flip and finding themselves cemented on the objective.
Yeah, it was really that Suzu coming out for the side of Chengdu that really turned that fight in their favor. That's probably a triple kill pulse bomb if that Suzu does not come out. So that just needs to be tracked a little bit better by the meta girls because that is a definite fight win otherwise.
We're using Suzu a lot of the times. It looks like to just kind of trade out a pulse bomb, but if you're not able to follow up afterwards, that really does become the pain point. The rush from Santix isn't finding huge amount of value, just getting space on the objective as Kindred. Now on the Mauga, you asked for it, there's the shooter composition that you wanted, and the amount of damage coming through is forced Satori into the Primal Rage, but still, the amount of space you would be expecting to get from a rush and a Primal, just not quite found there. HK finds Amelia and the Suzu is there to keep Senna alive, even in spite of Iridescent and Santix constantly throwing damage onto that Cassidy. Metagirl's invested pretty heavily in Amelia going over to the Reaper and Itori going over to the Orisa. It decides, or seems they've decided that they don't want to keep going with that comp.
Yeah, I do definitely like these swaps. These heroes can definitely do more damage onto this Malgo whenever they try and engage. And you're going to see the sound barrier up for Seika as well, and you're probably going to be able to hold that or beat aggressively and just push in.
Either way that you want to take it is fine by the Chengdu Drainers, because even though you've got Kindred solo, that is a Mauga. The Pulse Bomb is there just to finally trade them out, but Hitori has already fallen in the meantime. You stuck a Pulse Bomb onto a tank who was already dead, I'm afraid, and the trade's now relatively equal, but the Drainers still feel like they've got the most tempo control here, as 85% in building. It's last fight territory for them to just maintain their defense. HK gets the better of Iridescent. Tracer duel, one, not enough time comfortably for Iridescent to be able to get back and get a nice touch in, so it's going to have to be Hitori on the Orisa, playing around the low ground, 96%, and building now for Chengdu Drainers, but Hitori already being pressured out, and there's no ultimates left. Santix has to farm up for this Kitsune Rush, now available, now online, but yet to be pulled. Either way, Poryu is going to have the sound barrier in response if they want to use it. There it is, both ultimates already out, Rush and Barrier. Deadeye from Senna to force some space on the objective as Kindred builds up to the cage fight. H-Key taken out by Santix, stunned and removed. The cage fight does come out from Kindred, but the Terror Surge from Hitori is there to counteract it, and Amelia and Seika lighting up the kill feed right now. Metagirls, it's all coming up red at the last possible moment. 99% is all Chengdu Drainers are going to get for now, and it was a costly fight for them to lose.
It was honestly a great recovery from the side of Metagirls to just really be able to take this fight back and get in control. HK does have this pulse bomb though, so you're going to want to be super careful if you're the side of Metagirls and just be ready for that to come in.
Pulse bomb from HK and another pulse bomb from Iridescent. Amelia uses the Wraith Bomb. Death Blossom soon to follow, but taken out of it. HK manages to find the pulls onto Amelia in the opening and then gets the trade onto Hitori and Seika as well. HK broke, but no need for it because this Tracer is running rampant in the lobby.
Yeah, HK just getting a really nice flank there, getting this point touch, and I think Kindred's going to be able to touch, but just barely.
Iridescent manages to just keep the point alive for Metagirls for the time being. HK actually taken out by Santix there. You can rely on your Kiriko to be the one to mark the trace. That's always an advantage, and now it's dueling Doomfists on the point. Both tanks just wanting to make sure they're back fast enough to keep this fight going. Amelia on the Sombra as well, just trying to make Kindred's life hell. This Doomfist is finding no space at all to be able to do what they need to do to really cement this round for the Chengdu Drainers. Another Kitsune Rush coming out from Santix, but Poryu's beat is there yet again, and Senna finding the better of Amelia. The hit scan duel, one for the side of the Chengdu Drainers, and as that overhealth from Poryu and Seika starts to wear off, the fight is entering its latter stages, 99-99, but it's HK and Poryu again lighting up the kill feed. This Tracer has been going absolutely wild throughout this round, and Hitori doing everything in their power to just keep this first submap of the first map going. Meteor Strike lands onto Senna, and the Doomfist is still going. Eventually, HK finds that final blow onto the Doom. Emilia back on the Soldier, 76 is taken out. Very close for Seika to be able to keep this going, and that was an insane first submap to begin our EU bracket.
Even a little bit of trolling from the side of Metagirls, I think, with that initial Torbjorn dive composition. But once they swapped onto that Orisa comp, it got a lot closer, and really just some great support play from the side of the Chengdu Drainers to just constantly be alive, constantly have that sound barrier up just a few seconds before the side of Metagirls did a lot of the time. And I feel like that was winning them a lot of the fights because they were able to save their tank Kindred while Metagirls were not able to save Hitori in the exact same situation.
Yeah, a lot of the time you are looking at sound barrier and kind of keeping it in your mind that a later sound barrier is perhaps a little bit better, but if it's a forced later sound barrier, not one that you have control over, it can mean that the amount of health deficit is just a little bit too difficult to recover at the end of the day, and Poryu has been doing a fantastic job. They are definitively one of the best main supports in this tournament, and we can see why. They show up all the time, and that experience is really carrying them through at the moment. Amelia, very low for Metagirls, as we can see them posturing around this high ground. Drainers elected to just completely ignore it altogether and instead start playing onto the point itself, trying to pressure in some off angles as HK forces out the javelin from Hitori, and Hitori finds a javelin themselves for their trouble. HK gets a little low, plays around the Mega Pack, but without that Tracer's present, Iridescent is able to find the pick onto Kindred. Now the Orisa down for the Chengdu Drainers, even though they found that initial flip, they're probably going to have to back out and give space over to the Metagirls. Or at least you would think Senna and Aramori able to trade out Seika and Iridescent means that that usual angle presence that Metagirls would have is taken out. Hitori is there to clean it up, but this was a fight that realistically the Drainers lost 25% ago and still got 25% from.
Yeah, really great stall there from the side of Drainers. And you can see Poryu having that like almost 20% sound barrier advantage, so that is staying pretty consistent. But Hitori basically has Terra Surge already, and they're not going to be ready for this to come out.
Hitori's Terra Surge and Santic's Kitsune Rush. There's the rush coming out early, and Metagirls are playing so aggressive off the back of it. All those cooldowns used to disengage from the rush are burned through, and the Terra Surge is able to fly because of it. Senna just managed to trade back onto Iridescent, the Tracer going a little bit deep and getting caught out for it, but Metagirls cement their position on the point off the back of just a couple of ultimates, and it means they're going to be able to cycle in more off the back of it too. Emilia building up to that Blossom, and Seika going to have the sound barrier around the same time as Poryu, because your Lucio is now taken out very early in this fight.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge pick. Now Chengdu pretty much has to run away. They have no choice in the matter here.
Well, I mean, you say that.
Alright,
HQ,
fair enough.
A nice stick onto Hitori, make sure that the overextending Orisa is punished for their hubris, and Senna finds Seika as well, which means the disengage tool for the Metagirls is taken out. No speed amp for them to be able to get away cleanly. Amelia just going to stagger out on the point for a little bit, build up some extra percentage. Iridescent there as well, just to keep it going for an extra second or two. But now caught out, and maybe this Tracer going to fall, which is going to mean that Metagirls are going to be all the later to come back into this. Nevertheless, they are about 30% ahead on the point, so not the end of the world.
Yeah, and we're looking pretty even in terms of ultimates here. I mean, you got the Death Blossom versus the Deadeye and dueling sound barriers. I think everybody's just about to press their Q here. It's going to be like a 7 ultimate fight, something along those lines.
See, Iridescent manages to come back in strong, finds better of HK, Tracer Jewel, one for the Metagirls this time around, and Seika taken out as well means there's not going to be a sound barrier available for the Metagirls. Chengdu Drainers invest because of it. Poryu brings out the beat, and Kindred Terra Surge is there as well. Two Orisas both just throwing spears to each other and both trading out for it. And the Kitsune Rush from Aramori is there to follow up. Santix was already taken out, but Seika's back on the field. Sound barrier out for the Metagirls means that overhealth is going to sustain them through. And Senna taken out. It's starting to build towards that last fight territory for Metagirls now. So Chengdu Drainers, they have to back out. They invested so much and they didn't get anything for it.
I could be mistaken, but was that 9 ultimates that got used? Everything but Iridescent's Pulse Bomb.
Ultimates indeed. It's going to be ultimates that neither team has to get towards the last fight on our second sub-map, and it's looking like we might be going to a third as well, as Chengdu Drainers trying to posture around the objective, but the Metagirls have the defensive advantage as well, and that's where Amelia on this Reaper is really going to be able to come into their own. HQ forced back by Iridescent, some space made. Amelia actually caught out by Senna here, and Iridescent as well being forced away. The Pulse Bomb is good, lands onto Kindred, the Suzu is forced, but Senna able to trade back a nice headshot onto the Tracer, which means that the follow-through from that Suzu is not going to be there. A few little cleanups. Chengdu Drainers keeping this map alive.
Yeah, the Suzus from the side of Chengdu have just been stellar, fantastic, spectacular. Same with the sound barriers from Poryu. Big shout out to these support players from the side of Chengdu. And they also are going to have 4 ultimates up, and Metagirls only have their Kitsune Rush. This is going to be a really tough fight for them to win, and it's going to be last fight at this point.
Consistently, Santix has been able to build Kitsune Rush fast, but Aramori actually equal at the moment, which means that the usual advantage you'd be expecting will not be there. Aramori elects to use it first, knowing that the sound barrier is there to back up when Santix pulls one of their own. There it flies now. Metagirls Kitsune Rush in as well, but basically no damage going on to the Drainers until Senna gets caught out by Hitori, stunned by that Javelin. Poryu uses the sound barrier, almost gets stunned out of it, and the overhealth that was onto Kindred very quickly burned through. A nice Death Blossom to punish both the Beat and the Suzu coming out 99 to 99, but Metagirls are going to be taking us to a round 3 on Samoa.
Oh, you know, Chengdu are kicking themselves after that. They had such an insane ult advantage and just barely lost that fight there at the very end. Just lost out on that resource exchange overall.
And it was like, I could see Poryu wanting to hold the sound barrier and wanting to make sure that they don't rip it too early because, like, you know that you've got the beat advantage. The later you can do it into the fight, the more cooldowns Metagirls will have expended, so the more advantage you'll get. But waits a little bit too long, punished for being quite as conservative as they were, and Senna does get found out. Means your Deadeye that you could usually use to zone out Amelia and force that Reaper to not just pull the Death Blossom is no longer there, so as soon as the Suzu and the Beat are out, it's just free for the Reaper to go in alongside the Terror Surge. We're going back to a Torbjorn. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never too upset at seeing the Torb, like I said earlier. It fits with the Orisa, so I'm not too upset with it. It was just the Winston that made it kind of strange to me.
It does kind of feel like a bit of a gambit that we've seen Green Fortnite in particular using, where you play a composition that is only really going to find advantage if you're able to find positioning on the objective first of all. And Chengdu Drainers being able to take out Iridescent and then force all of this space means that advantage that Metagirls would usually be playing for, where they can bunker down, is not there. Poryu finds Hitori, and it was a bit of a slow fight. Chengdu Drainers do find the cap, but Metagirls forced back for now.
Yeah, I mean, just an early pick onto this turret, and you're just seeing these shots come out from the side of Chengdu. No real big ult exchange to speak of just yet, and then a huge early pick to just continue staggering this fight out.
We're seeing why Chengdu Drainers are able to perform as strongly as they are, because Senna and HK are just so mechanically strong as individual players. Amelia going over to this Genji now just to try and find some kind of like counterplay to this Cassidy who's just been spamming in from range the whole time. If you're able to mirror the hit scan, then that's fantastic, but if Iridescent is on the Tracer, then they're not on the Sojourn or the Cassidy themselves. Gets very low indeed and is starting to build towards that pulse bomb, but not there yet, and Aramori's Kitsune Rush actually first to be built on this time around. It is going to get pulled in this fight as Metagirls start to use their cooldowns to force themselves onto the objective, and look at how quick that Peacekeeper is firing into Hitori. The amount of damage is a little bit too much to recover. We're already at 50%. Santix does manage to trade back one, but this is very quickly getting away from the Metagirls' hands.
Yeah, I mean, watching that Cassidy right there, that kind of reminded me of 2020. You remember when they buffed Cass and he actually just shot that fast normally?
Iridescent setting up on this off angle. Has the pulse bomb available. Probably going to use it just to try and force Suzu, but as soon as it's out, they're going to be able to do something like the Terror Surge. There's the Terror Surge and the pulse bomb in conjunction. The Terror Surge from Kindred is good, though. Manages to find Iridescent and Emilia, the Sound Barrier, and the Suzu just enough to make sure the Chengdu Drainers are kept alive in this fight. Santic's own Kitsune Rush doesn't really find much value at all, and now as we're at 80-90% for the Drainers, the Metagirls are forced to use their own Sound Barrier, but it's so late on in the fight, you don't have your full team there to find the advantage from it. Santix is really doing work from this off angle, just finding dink after dink that Descent and Amelia are able to follow up on, just about keeping themselves in the round. It was almost 99-0 to close out Samoa, but still going for now.
Yeah, Santix just decided to put that whole fight on their back right there, getting like, what was that, like 3 or 4 picks just back to back on this Kiriko. Those headshots do some crazy damage when you're hitting it consistently. And we're going to see a Dry Blade come out from Amelia. Probably going to instantly die because that's what happens to Genjis that use Blade, you know? But I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
I'd imagine we're probably going to see Senna's Deadeye trying to zone it, but actually Senna's Deadeye pulled a little bit early just to see if they can find some space onto the objective. And now that it's out, the rush from Aramori, I mean, the Blade is going to try and counter it. Like you said, it's just the you die button on this occasion. Senna finding 3 before eventually being shut down by Iridescent, who does have this pulse bomb available, but H-Key is still there to mark that Tracer, and Santix taken out too. Means that Iridescent, if they do engage in, is not going to have any follow-up at all. The recall was already forced as well, so Iridescent manages to find another, but it only recovers half of their health, eventually taken out by Aramori. H-Key has this pulse bomb, throws it in wild, catches onto nobody, and now Medicals are able to push onto the point just because of it. A little bit of an ambitious one there from Allison, but hey, you know, you'll take what you can get in these final moments of the fight. Hitori building up this Terror Surge with the beat from Poryu there, just to try and make sure that they can kill this Orisa early. It has to get pulled a little bit earlier than Hitori would have liked, because even though that Terror Surge is out, it just doesn't build up enough charge, and the Kitsune Rush from Santix is countered out by a Terror Surge from Kindred. These Orisas have just been dueling on the field, but unlike Hitori, Kindred is still standing afterwards. Senna back on the Soldier 76 finds Santix, but Aramori is traded out by Emilia. This Genji half low dead. HK able to find the better there, taken out by Seik, but then Senna finds Iridescent. The Mauga is back on the field, and Medicals do not want to let this point go. They are willing to pull out all the stops to just try and make it work, but a Mauga is so easy to shoot, and there are so many shooters. Senna, Kindred, Poryu, they are able to keep this point and map alive, and Chengdu Drainers are going to be confidently taking Samoa.
Really strong play from Chengdu. I expect this is that 3 to 4K that we saw a minute ago from Santix. Yes, this was some sick shots just repeatedly on this Kiriko. It was really, to me, that was just an ultimate, that was just a little bit of an ultimate difference. I think Chengdu just had a little bit better use of their ultimates than the Meta Girls did. And it can make it look a lot less close than it actually is, especially on like point number 3 right there. Like every single time there was an ult exchange, Chengdu was taking the ult exchange. It seemed like Metagirls was actually doing a lot better in the neutral, but Chengdu was doing better with their ultimates, and that's what's going to win you fights and maps overall.
I like the way that Chengdu were willing to like kind of disengage and take fights a little bit slower as well. We don't see it a huge amount. There has been that discourse on Twitter, the NA brain rot of just shoot them, just keep shooting all down main. Everyone down main, just shoot. It's nice to see teams that are like, okay, we don't really need to invest in this fight. We can kind of back up a little bit, and that is a weakness that can be exploited. We saw it exploited against Chengdu Drainers yesterday by Green Fortnite. It's something that you have to make sure is perfect when you're in these playoffs, because even if you're against a team that you think of yourself as being a little bit better than, if you're not getting in that practice for the teams that are going to be really strong against you, you're going to get caught out by it yet again. So for the Drainers, I think that's definitely something that they could continue to work on a little bit, but for Metagirls, it's something that they need to be working on a lot, because as you said, if you're consistently losing ult fights against a team that's building ultimates every fight, you're consistently losing every fight.
Yeah, like I said, it was just a slight difference in that ult exchange. The fight I'm thinking of in particular was on point 3. We saw a Kitsune Rush, a Terra Surge, and then a Sound Barrier coming out. And the Sound Barrier came out right when both Orisas were about like 50 HP probably, so it just gives Chengdu that little bit of extra that they needed to win the fight. And then the Sound Barrier for Metagirls just isn't as impactful because it's coming in like a fully neutral fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Santix we've seen able to put in a lot of damage on that Kiriko and build that Kitsune Rich quickly. It was really nice to see Aramori as well able to kind of keep pace on that third point in particular, especially with Poryu maintaining good form and just having Sound Barrier 10, 20, 30% ahead of their mirror every single fight, every single time that you want to use that beat. It's very impressive to be able to have that kind of difference going into this kind of level, and if you're able to maintain that throughout the rest of the series, this first to 3 might not look as close as perhaps this initial map might make it seem, but either way, before we get into our next map, it is going to be a matter of both teams just figuring themselves out, taking us somewhere new. Metagirls are going to be picking this map again. They were the higher seed, so they got to pick map 1, but now they're the losers, so they're picking map 2 as well, and we are going over to Paraiso. How are you feeling about them going into this, Shadowpack?
So considering that they wanted to play this Winston composition, it seemed like at the beginning of Samoa, I understand why you're going to pick Paraiso, because it's a very divey type of map, at least in my opinion. That's a good way that you can play into the map. So I imagine they're gonna walk out on this Winston composition that we saw a little bit earlier.
The Winston composition, I can definitely, especially on the attack, right, when you want to be pressuring that high ground and just taking it a little bit early, but Kindred is kind of known as being a confident Ram Sig player, and we have seen teams kind of favor a little bit of a pokier situation if they really want to, especially on first and second point where those high grounds and those long angles are so strong. So I feel like there's still options here for the Drainers to play something a little bit further away from the Orisa if they really want. I think nevertheless it's probably going to devolve back into Orisa versus Orisa, because at the end of the day she's just consistent and strong. But I mean, if Metagirls are able to find good value on this Winston, and if they're able to find good value with the Torbjorn, which at least now they'll have the option of defending first, so they can do that if they really wanted to, there is going to be the option there. We're actually going to be seeing something a little bit different floated for now, but it's the same kind of composition that we've seen kind of teased by other teams in this meta from the Draeners.
Yeah, I always like seeing the Echo Tracer compositions. I feel like they're especially strong. You just build ultimate so fast on both of those DPS heroes, so you're gonna have ultimate like almost every single fight on DPS at least, because it's crazy fast build. I imagine Iridescent's probably just gonna come out, take a grapple shot, and then go swap back to the Tracer though.
We can see actually both teams as well. I think in this situation where you're running like a Tracer Echo, Metagirls might actually have the DPS advantage just because I'm imagining Iridescent's going to go for the Widow shot and then switch over to the Tracer. But it does mean that you've got both players from the Metagirls on very comfortable heroes from them. HK is the usual Tracer player for the Chengdu Hunter. Senna can play that Tracer, but with HK on the Echo instead, you are really looking at her to be able to find the most value instead. Kindred on this D.Va is going to be able to eat all the damage from Amelia if they're actually turning around to actually look at those stickies, but for now it's Metagirls posturing up and finding space, Chengdu Draeners playing back. But giving space up is what D.Va likes to do, so that you can then counter-dive back onto the enemy backline. We can see Hitori playing around this high ground, just looking for something, as HK just going for free. The Winston eventually going to respond back, and the Echo is very low indeed. HK burned for going a little bit too deep, but Hitori also incredibly low. There's the counter-dive coming through from Kindred, and even though you're able to take out the Echo, you get punished for going in deep to be able to make it happen. Nice defense matrix to make sure that Aramori is still going, and Amelia and Iridescent are keeping Metagirls in the fight here. The Tracer and the Echo doing good work in Stantix. We can see those Afuda flying in to make sure that they've got some presence on the point. Ara's ready to hand off, but apparently I'm still going because Metagirls, they're back in this fight and they want to keep going. Senna does manage to trade back onto Iridescent, but Hitori, again, finding HK. This Echo has not been finding the value that we had previously been hoping for. Senna, though, is willing to do the work that Allison is not managing to achieve. Seika taken out, and those cooldowns that Metagirls have invested, punished off the back of it. It's just going to be cleanup.
And yeah, I mean, Kindred is just doing a fantastic job of just staying alive on this D.Va super consistently. We saw them from their POV go down to as low as like 50 HP and still manage to stay alive. And when you do that, that gives your supports a massive ultimate advantage. We can see again that sound barrier advantage we talked about in the last map is coming to fruition again. And still though, both sides are basically having all of their ultimates. I really don't know which way this is about to go.
Stantix decides to pull the Kitsune rush early, and Iridescent's Pulse Bomb is there. Lands onto Poryu. I don't think that was a stick onto the Lucio, but candidly delivered to them nonetheless. Nice remech from Kindred to take the dupe D.Va out of mech, but it's built back so quickly. Two little bunny blasters, and already that Echo is back in their own copied mech, but it's Metagirls finding the advantage at the end of the day, as even though Sin is able to trade back one, Iridescent, Stantix, Amelia, able to just find so much damage onto the Chengdu Draeners, who held onto their own ultimates and decided that actually, we don't want to invest them on this occasion. Poryu was taken out early, so whilst we are going to stall out the objective for a little while, we're going to give up first. They wanted to re-engage, actually. They come back in with the beat, but Senna forced out just a little bit too early, and even though they use the sound barrier and Kindred comes back on the Doomfist to try and go for a quick retouch, it is just going to be Metagirls who find first overall, and probably the cleanup for the rest of this fight as well.
Yeah, that's such a tragic little moment right there. I mean, we've all had that happen before, though. Last second contest, and then we end up not quite getting it the way we want to. That sticky, though, by Iridescent killing Poryu early was so massive, and it's gonna get the Metagirls at least halfway through point 2.
Aramori, currently on the Ana. Be interested to see if she actually sticks on this with Kindred back on the D.Va. We've seen this kind of support tank duo work out previously, but I think it is just so vulnerable when you don't have that Suzu in. Like, the Pulse Bomb, you just don't really have a counter for it anymore unless Kindred is consistently eating them, which means that your D.Va has to constantly be marking Iridescent at the same time as Senna is. You can see Hitori going in deep onto the high ground, already trying to put as much pressure onto Aramori as possible, and this Primal is available, so as the anti comes out, it's, I mean, perhaps not as good of a Primal as you were hoping for because it's immediately slept, but you do find HK nonetheless, and Amelia is there to find the cleanup onto Kindred. Senna does trade back to keep that Echo from going a little bit too far, and Senna, just left for free in the backline, manages to take out Stantix actually, and even though this payload was supposedly meant to be rolling, it's still going! Nice stick onto Seika means that now the full backline for Metagirls is taken out. It's actually going to be the Chengdu Draeners stabilizing and cleaning up here. Senna left unmarked is deadly.
Yeah, that was an absolute just hard carry from Senna right there because Hitori managed to box out both supports from Chengdu, so you think that's a free fight win for the side of Metagross, and then boom, Senna just gets a 3K. Just nice, quick and easy like that. Great play. And now you have potentially you could nano your Echo and have a nice little play right there. Nano your Diva, you got some plays here if you're Chengdu.
Tsune Rush comes out early in this fight, and another dupe from Amelia. The Rush dupe combo, I think, is an interesting one to go for, especially with HK duping onto the Winston. If she's able to build up that primal, then this dupe becomes very valuable in the nano boost. Going out onto the dupe Winston is going to help her try and get there. There's the primal. That usual health cap that the Echo has no longer there, but it's at the very end of the dupe cycle, so actually burned out of it very soon, and that focusing beam from Amelia taking HK very low indeed. Without that Echo there to mark anymore, Hitori gets a nice clean dive onto Poryu, who's back on the Brigitte. They've fully committed onto this Ana composition, but they've given up second and first for it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be difficult to really keep this Ana alive when you have the Tracer Echo just constantly spamming it down main on them. You've got the Winston bubbles dropping down, blocking the healing that can be done. It's a lot to deal with. And we're seeing Amelia swap onto this Bastion pick, And we've also seen Chengdu, Kindred has swapped over to the Winston. Yeah, back to the Diva. Good. If you swap to the Winston when they swap to Bastion, that's just the most unlucky thing I've ever seen.
Senna, making sure that Iridescent stays awake for this fight. No AFKing for you, gotta make sure that you're still going, and that Tracer is still low. Those off angles going to be relatively unmarked. The recall's there to make sure that Senna not taken out too early, and Kindred's there to try and follow through as well. HK manages to find Santix, and now that this Kiriko is out of the fight, it should be a little bit easy for the Drainers to re-engage back in, but Kindred already taken out of mech, overstays their welcome just a little bit. A nice stick from Senna to take out Seika, but HK's dropped as well, and as Iridescent trades back in the Tracer duel, Poryu knocked off the high ground as well. It's just going to be an easy pickings for the Tracer, surely onto this Brig. A nice stick to make sure that Poryu's taken out of that fight, and that rally doesn't get used until very last fight as Metagirls rounding the final corner.
Yeah, I mean, great sticks from both Tracers, honestly. Both of them are just doing a stellar job. And Chengdu, you're going to want to try and get these ultimates out of Chengdu if you're the side of Metagirls. You've got like 2 more fights here, potentially.
Tsune Rush comes out from Santix, which is going to start it off. A nice anti from Aramori lands onto Iridescent and Santix, but they're just going to be able to live through it. HK dupes onto the Tracer, now onto her namesake hero. Only one that maybe you prefer is the Genji, but fortunately not on the field for her to dupe. Senna manages to find Sakura. Now with the Lucio gone, you are able to force some ultimates out of the Metagirls, but the Drainers had to invest pretty heavily to make it happen, both Rally and Dupe gone, and the Metagirls still aren't entirely uprooted, still playing around these high grounds, and if they're able to find a couple of picks, they might elect to go back in, but chilling for now.
Yeah, and we're going to be taking into last fight territory here, and all you really have if you're the side of Metagirls is this sound barrier. Hopefully that'll be enough for you to survive through this Pulse Bomb and Nano Boost coming out from Chengdu, but it's going to be tough to cap this point. Paraiso's notoriously difficult.
Aramori goes incredibly low, but Poryu's there to cover. The Nano Boost goes out onto Kindred, who's now back on the Winston. HK's very low, and Senna's Pulse Bomb goes a little bit wide. Hitori is low and eventually taken out. Santix and the tank both taken out of this fight for Metagirls, but Seika able to keep it alive by trading back onto Senna. A nice anti onto Iridescent is recalled away, and Kindred just playing this slow, wanting to farm for Primal. They know that they've got some time to play with, but with only 90 centimeters left and Amelia's Blade on the field, it's a nice sleep from Aramori to make sure that Genji is shut down, and that is exactly what Chengdu Drainers needed to make sure that third wasn't capped out by the Metagirls. The Primal from Kindred is good at just forcing space and forcing damage, even as the Metagirls try and keep this point alive. Chengdu Drainers just about hanging on. That sleep was crucial to making sure they didn't get wiped there.
And, if you're the side of Metagirls, you still pushed it all but the way there. You pushed it all but 0.9 meters to the full cap. So you can't be too mad at that. Like we've said before, Paraiso is super, super difficult to capture. And again, Amelia pulls the blade just to get slept and die. That's just what Genji does. There's nothing we can do about it. At this level, that's just what Genji does, Yeah.
I mean, you can play around your cooldowns and your ultimates really well as well. They know that Aramori doesn't have the nano to sustain Poryu, and Poryu doesn't have the rally to be able to sustain both supports. It's a matter of, it's the optimal situation, right? You've got out as much as you possibly can. As many resources that you're going to force have been forced. Yep. But Aramori is smart. We know that she's really, really good, both mechanically and in terms of overall macro, and that Sleep Dart always in the back pocket if the Genji has Blade. Emilia gets punished for it. Now it's going to be onto the Chengdu Drainers, who, compared to Metagirls, haven't perhaps favored this Winston composition as much, but as we said, on that attack, probably going to be the composition you want to run, and it is the one they're hovering at the moment.
Yeah, I am definitely a fan of this composition. I like seeing the swap over to the Ana and the Brig. The anti-nades can be really, really big time. And also seeing Winston duels. That's an interesting way to put it, but I always like seeing Winston be Winston, just to see who can position themselves slightly better, who can have like the better bubble usage, all that little macro stuff. I find it really fun to watch.
All the little aspects that go into mirror duels in particular I find really fun. Traces are really obvious, and the echoes kind of as well, but the Winstons have so much behind it. It's just super fun to watch and analyze at the highest level. Iridescent, Hitori, both already forced off the high ground as Chengdu Drainers, finding a nice position to set up Aramori to be able to just play safe and then step in if needed. Iridescent tries to get some of that space back, but is forced off once again. As the Tracer goes in, the recall is forced as some attention goes towards them. Emilia does find the better of HQ, who it feels like consistently has just been dropping very early on in these fights throughout Paraiso so far. And Iridescent goes a little bit too low. Senna finding the better of their pick, but Kindred caught out that bubble, blocking all the healing that Aramori would want to be putting in. And with the Winston duel one, it's going to be Metagirls stabilizing.
And that's the types of things I love seeing on a Winston, right? You just put the bubble in just the right position. Fantastic stick by Senna. Again, Senna just doing the most on this map right now.
Hitori goes low, plays for the Mega Pact, is able to find it, but the Pulse Bomb is there, and Iridescent only 75% to their own, wouldn't be able to answer back even if they wanted to. Nano Boost onto Emilia, again finding H-Key. Kindred trades back Iridescent in the meantime, and Seika's down as well. Your Brigitte no longer there, and the Nano wouldn't have been there to sustain them either way. Means that Chengdu Drainers, even as Emilia is doing everything they can to try and keep this alive, Santic's taken out, means that Chengdu Drainers are probably going to be able to find first pretty comfortably. A trade onto Aramori means the Kitsune Rush is not there, so if the Medicals are able to fully commit back in, they are going to have the advantage, and Hitori's there with the Primal Range as well. Poryu invests the Sound Barrier just to make sure that they can keep this fight alive and properly close out first. H-Key being juggled off the map, goes out of the dupe and ends up just falling a little bit too late. Animation locked as they fall. Unlucky indeed. Hitori is low, but healed up by Santix, and now the rally coming through from Seika means that even though Chengdu Drainers have invested every ultimate, HK even going over to the Sombra just to see if she can get back in time, they're stabilizing. Metagirls have held on.
Ooh, man, that was a tough fight hole for the side of Metagirls. And it really just came with that. I think that rally from Seika was the biggest part of it right there. Getting that little bit of extra sustain right at the end, it was actually absolutely massive. You got maybe one more ult fight if you're the side of Chengdu to try and take this. You're going to have to take it in the neutral most likely.
And the most important thing at this point, if you want to be able to take another ult fight, is to not die. If you play too aggressive at this point in time, all that's going to happen is you lose the opportunity for your teammates to be able to build more ultimates, not as much healing, not as much damage, and that's the key thing in these moments. You're able to find Iridescent, but you're not able to find Hitori quite yet. The Nano Boost from Santix sustaining the Winston, but Emilia caught out by Kindred. Nice follow-up from her to be able to make sure that the Tracer is, the Echo is removed. Seika does find Senna, but Kindred finds Seika in the meantime. And even though Metagirls are back in with ultimates, Chengdu Drainers are building up some of their own. The Pulse Bomb from Iridescent, though, to fully seal this off. There's 40 seconds left, and Metagirls did invest just to keep this defense alive, so Drainers have the opportunity, but only 30 seconds.
Oh my goodness, Drainers having all of their ultimates on the board. You just got to stay calm, cool, and collected in this moment and keep planning out the fights as you have been. You have such a massive advantage if you're the side of Drainers. You have no reason to not take this fight right now.
You do have to take it a little bit quicker than perhaps you'd like, but that's realistically it. When you can play around 5 ultimates, even Aramori able to just farm for this Kitsune Rush for the time that they have left, and you can see Kindred going deep to enable it. Hitori as well, playing on this off angle to just keep some pressure going for Metagirls, but realistically this EMP and the Kitsune Rush come through. HK finds the kill onto Hitori, that angle pressure no longer there. Emilia's doing their best, but the dupe onto the Lucio is probably not what you were hoping for in that situation. The rally from Seika isn't bad, but hacked, deleted, Iridescent close to Pulse, but not close enough, as Chengdu Drainers in overtime going to be able to cap out first and keep themselves in Paraiso.
Yep, you had to pop all 5 of your ultimates, but that's fair enough. You got to cap this point, keep this map moving. You have a win condition. You just have to complete the map. So fair enough. Burn all your ultimates. Do exactly what you need to do to push that point forward. And now we've got Santix gonna have his nano boost online. Don't stick the sound. That would be sick.
Oh, H key caught out, gets a little bit too deep, and then just followed up afterwards. Senna not there to keep Iridescent marked during that escape from the Sombra. Chengdu Drainers, they're not going to find much stall. They're still keeping the payload rolling, even in spite of losing one, which at this point in time is really much all you can ask for. But Medicals still have control of the nice corners that they want to play around, and the ultimates they're going to want to use to maintain that control. Nice eat from Kindred to make sure that Iridescent's Pulse does not find another double kill on this particular fight. And going to be marking Amelia as well, who's back on the Reaper, slowly trying to build up that Death Blossom. Senna's Pulse Bomb comparatively better than Iridescent, manages to catch onto the Reaper, who had Brave Form forced out. And even though Hitori is close to a Primal Rage, Chengdu Drainers are still keeping this payload rolling. Metagirls re-engage back in, and they're trying to keep this fight going, but at this point in time, how long can you keep this before you just have to give yourself some space?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you decide Chengdu, you kind of just want to back up, get a full reset going, get another fight planned out. You're getting really close to a lot of your ultimates. I think you kind of need to plan around this EMP. That's the big ult that's going to turn it for you.
Nano already coming out from Santix as well, that it means if the EMP does come through, and the Primal too, you're not going to have to worry about those big sustain tools. Seika's Rally, also not there, which you're hoping HK is going to be able to mark out, get a hack onto the brig, and make sure that you're aware of this ahead of time, or just some good old-fashioned ult tracking if you don't want to cheat for it. Nevertheless, it's the same situation. Drainers, 5 ultimates, and they only need to win 1 fight to cap out second.
Yeah, I think this time, though, you need to stagger your ultimates out just in case somebody gets this touch at this very last corner.
EMP setting up from HK, it's good. Lands onto both the Brig and the Ana. Seika immediately deleted that virus, doing so much damage. Not the follow-up that you would have wanted, though, to make sure that the Ana is also taken out. Emilia's Blossom goes a little bit wide, and Senna's Pulse Bomb too, as Santix trading one back onto HK, actually, and Iridescent has to die here. The Pulse Bomb from Kindred able to punish the recalling Tracer, but Hitori's back on the field, and Santix is still alive. The Ana is still going. That EMP should have been your win condition, but now, with Santix still going, the healing is still there as Medicals setting up to re-engage. Good push coming through from Aramori just to make sure that Chengdu Drainers are still going. Even though HK does find Hitori, Kindred is already taken out of mech, and it's all on the DPS line of the Chengdu Drainers to be able to keep themselves in this fight at this point. Nice hack onto Iridescent to make sure that the Tracer couldn't recall properly. Not able to keep the Sombra out of that hack animation quickly enough. Santix eventually falls, but realistically, that Ana stayed alive for far too long, and that fight was far too close.
Yeah, it honestly looked like we were about to see a nano rally potentially turn that at the very end, but it just barely didn't come to fruition. And lucky enough for Chengdu Drainers, it doesn't matter how hard it is for you to cap it. All you have to do is cap it. You just got to get to the end of this map, and it's yours. You're up 2-0 at that point. So just keep playing the way you're playing, I guess.
The key thing, though, is yet again, each time you cap in overtime, you're getting less time on the bank to actually work with, less than a minute already to be able to cap out third. And with HK going down early, Senna decides it's time to make a play, gets a nice stick onto Seika, and the nano boost coming out from Santix to make sure that Amelia can start farming in some damage is going to force the Chengdu Drainers back for now. You got an ultimate out of the defending side, and Seika switching over to the sound barrier, switching over to Lucio means the sound barrier probably won't be available for the time being. A nice anti as well onto Amelia means that Chengdu Drainers are going to find some distance, but Metagirls, they have the opportunity to just fall back. Hitori doesn't want to, though. Nice EMP from HK lands onto Seika and Iridescent, but no follow-through because Kindred's busy peeling to make sure that Hitori isn't finding good value from this Primal Rage. Iridescent goes low, and the recall is forced, but this Tracer is still alive for now. You have to find them. Okay, Kindred able to follow through, but you trade out Aramori and your mech in the process. And in the final few seconds, it looks like Metagirls, in spite of how heavily they invested, Drainers just caught in too many different places, looking in too many different directions. The squish from the dupe was attempted. A nice rally stun from Koryu to punish that little bit of ego, but nevertheless, not quite enough to keep the Drainers in this map. Metagirls going to be taking Para ESO confidently, and we're seeing that even in spite of the Metagirls name, they're able to play the Winston as well.
Yeah, I mean, just really strong Tracer Echo play from both sides. The pulse bombs in particular have just been spectacular. Just like that's what we're gonna see right here. The sticky, oh, the Winston boop into the double kill. Like you love that. You love that. That was just such a great little combo they had right there.
And if you're able to do that consistently each fight, you know, wonderful, right? But realistically, you're usually only looking at that pulse bomb to force Suzu get some cooldowns out, especially in this kind of Winston iteration where you can then very quickly follow up on the dive afterwards. I feel like that's something that we were missing from Kindred in particular. Even when HQ was landing good EMPs, even when the Sombra and the Tracer were trying to find targets, it was the case that the tank wasn't there to make sure that extra little bit of damage was coming through, that the defense matrix was used to sustain. There was a lot of peel from Kindred, which is nice, but there's also a certain point we have to acknowledge, like, is it actually just more worth it to trade out my backline here? Can I just leave them to their own devices and just make sure we actually find kills? Because alone Winston probably isn't going to do much of a threat. Even if the Primal Rage gets popped to just kill your backline, if you've got a D.Va, a Tracer, and an Echo, all looking at a Winston, the Winston's going to die. Like, that's just how that's going to work. If you're not trading those backlines, though, and that Winston is just sustained through it all, nope. Gonna be going forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought the Winston duel there was fantastic. Both tanks played well. Yeah, everybody's just playing really stellar right now, honestly. Like, it's a really close game, which is exactly what we expected. So, you know, I'm glad to see it. But we are going to be taking our first break here. And so we'll be back in about 5 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to our first match of the Kunoichi Kommotion EU playoffs bracket. We have been seeing some really stellar play, like you said, from both these teams so far, both Metagirls and Chengdu Draeners, really coming out swinging so far in this series, and it feels like where that first map was pretty confidently in Chengdu Draeners' hands, Metagirls able to answer back on this Winston composition on Paraiso in particular. They put a really good showing for themselves, and we're starting to see why they were able to win that earlier match yesterday and find themselves in that second seed compared to Chengdu Draeners.
Yeah. I mean, just really a lot better ult exchange for the side of Metagirls on map 2 as opposed to map 1. Maybe they're just more familiar with the way the ults need to be exchanged on this Winston composition, because like I said, we were seeing a lot of fights where a last second rally was coming out and just winning the Metagirls the fights. So it was just that little bit was really making a big difference in the overall scheme of the map.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of teams are going to be in that same situation where Winston is just like confident for them. It's in their wheelhouse. I feel like Winston's like the default hero for a new patch just dropped. What should we try and run? If Arisa's not working, we play Winston instead, and you just go between those two, right? And then if Winston's not working, okay, we'll just play Arisa and hope for the best. And maybe another tank is able to eke their way in eventually, but it's usually just those two, like old reliable and old reliable but boring. For the Chengdu Draeners, as we go over to Suravasa in particular, I think that there's going to be the opportunity for Kindred to maybe have a little bit of a start on this Ramatra again. We did see her doing that yesterday, so there are options here for both teams if they want to run something a little bit differently, but I mean, I said it for Paraiso, I'm going to say it again for Suravasa. I think at the end of the day, it's most likely to devolve back into an Arisa-based composition, especially with Flashpoint being a lot flatter than Paraiso.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the flatness of Flashpoint and the inability to kind of like jump in between high grounds. I would definitely opt for an Orisa composition as being the easiest thing to do, right? You can make a Ramatra work, but what always ends up being meta is what's the easiest thing to do that's the most consistent. That's why Goats was meta for so long. There are things you could do that were better, per se. You could run that ball Pharah comp that you would see, but it's like, what is the easiest and most consistent thing that gets you value? That's what teams are going to end up picking most of the time.
Most of the time, but Hitori is actually the one surprising us starting out of this Ramatra. Kindred not going to be mirroring it. I'm curious to see if Draeners will have Aramori switch over to the Baptiste. That's what we saw Green Fortnite do against the Draeners, so it would be interesting to see if they kind of like iterate on that kind of strategy that Green Fortnite employed yesterday and say, oh, well, they've got a Ramatra, we'll go back, we'll just farm for window and then burn the Ramatra down at every opportunity. Metagirls trying to play around these long angles that usually you'd want to see the Arisa playing around a little bit more, and Senna going to be struggling to build up some good rail shot charge off the back of it. Nevertheless, Iridescent currently lagging behind a little bit in regard to ult charge, but Amelia's teleporters keeping Chengdu Draeners on their toes, forcing back the space that they really need to be able to find, and Kindred, without cooldowns and very low, the Suzu is forced out of Aramori. Off the back of it, Metagirls are the ones finding space. Iridescent, Javelin off the objective on that high ground, just looking for something now as both teams take a little bit of a pause as Metagirls find that initial cap, and Kindred still very low. Lamp forced out of Metagirls and taken out by Kindred, and again, Hitori on the Ramatra is very low indeed. This Ramatra is just getting spammed down by the sheer damage output of the Chengdu Draeners, but the Metagirls are doing a really good job of anchoring around this objective and making sure that there's no off angles that Hitori can be found out on. Kitsune Rush comes out early from Aramori, and Santix has an amplification matrix to match. Emilia does get found out by Senna though, and as Kindred goes in deep with the sound barrier, probably just going to play for a Terror Surge to try and finish it off. The lamp does come through and Iridescent is taken out by HP's Pulse Bomb. This Surge not needed on this occasion. 70%, but eventually the Draeners win a clean fight.
Yeah, it was a little expensive for you because Chengdu, it cost you 3 ultimates. But at the same time, the Metagirls just have a sound barrier and an overclock, and you still have an overclock of your own. I think this is really going to come down to how good is Seika's sound barrier here, because that can be the deciding factor for the Metagirls taking this next fight.
And Seika's sound barrier is going to want to enable Hitori to build up to the Annihilation as well. The overclock coming out early from Iridescent finds a lot of damage onto Senna, who then drops, gets pulled into the Terror Surge by Kindred, but is able to use the Power Slide to get back out again. The overclock from Iridescent eventually wears off, but too much damage has gone on to Kindred, and Chengdu Drainers are going to be slowly falling as Metacles already found the flip as well. At the end of the day, Iridescent's Overclock just consistently finding more value, and Seika's Sound Barrier was there to build up the Annihilation. It just wasn't needed.
Yeah, great timing on that Sound Barrier for Seika, and then you take this point, you don't even have to use the Annihilation, so you're left with Annihilation and Symmetra Ultimate, and then you're going to have basically that Bap ult's going to build up super fast, so there's no way you don't walk into this next ult with 3 ultimates, and Chengdu not going to have really anything to combat what you're trying to do.
HK hovering over yet another classic, and a favorite of mine, there's the Allison May that I know and love and was coached on so rigorously. The Metagirls are going to have this Photon Barrier and this Annihilation to play around, and if they're able to use it to shut down Aramori's window, they're going to have the advantage, but that's a matter of making sure that your ult tempo is good. Tori is going to want to use this Annihilation first, and Kindred on the Mauga already burned down so low. Aramori's Baptiste has to be clinical if they want to make sure that Kindred doesn't get burned down early here. Nice wall from HK to force out both Nemesis Form and Photon Barrier, and Chengdu Drainers just disengaged. They're willing to try and cheat that ultimate, but Iridescent is there to chase nonetheless, and unfortunately, even though you wanted to try and get away from that and play the ult tempo cleanly, a Sojourn with a Lucio Amp is there to chase you down and make sure you don't get away with it as well as you wanted.
Yeah, and you managed to hold on to your Annihilation as well, so you're going to have an Annihilation going into what is now a mirror Ramatra fight. Senna just opening this fight up cleanly. This is going to be a big push from Chengdu.
Iridescent rail-shotting their demons there, and Senna able to get the better of the Sojourn Jewel off the back of it yet again. HK setting up early on the point, manages to find a wall to try and isolate the Tori, but those Sim turrets able to make sure that Cryo was first early means that Metagirls are going to be able to re-engage back in. Both Lamp and Annihilation are pulled, and now the Lamp from Aramori is taken out too, but the Amplification Matrix from that Baptiste able to get the better of Santix. Senna taking out the rail charge, rail shot double damage, incredibly effective. Iridescent re-engages back in with a rail shot and overclock of her own though. Senna taken down at the same time as Kindred, who was back on this Ramatra. This is going to be a full recontest from the Metagirls. Kichki wants to put an end to it and throws in the Blizzard. Eventually, Hattori is going to fall off the back of it, even in spite of Seika's Sound Barrier, but it was only the tank, and now Chengdu Drainers slowly being forced back off the point. Alone May with no cryo, and cleaned up eventually. The Metagirls, I mean, Kindred wants to keep this alive, but there's not long for you in this world.
Yeah, I mean, that's just free ult charge for the side of the Metagirls, so you'll take it. You'll definitely take it. And you managed to build up to your Photon Barrier to the side of the Metagirls, so you can deny most of the value of this overclock if you place this barrier well.
I think the Drainers, there's a little bit of a lack of confidence in this Orisa composition. They just elected to give up this flashpoint altogether, just going to go over towards Palace instead. I don't think it's a bad play, because re-engaging is going to be a threat to you, but it does mean that you're now 2-0 up, or 2-0 down, on Flashpoint so far, and Seika and Iridescent finding early picks onto Kindred and Koryu means that realistically, Metagirls are going to be getting first cap on third and potentially final as well.
Yeah, I mean, just great fight take for the side of Metagirls. You're taking it while Chengdu is retreating, and if you can't proactively use your walls and you're reactively using your walls on the Mei, it's not going to be quite as effective, because it's not where you want it to be put at, it's where they're forcing you to put it.
And honestly, you'd be expecting HK's walls to be finding consistently more value here. There's not really a good tool that Metagirls have to burn through them really quickly if you're able to place them just nicely to isolate off Hattori. But these teleporters from Amelia that allow the off-angle pressure even when the walls come through have really been saving Metagirls in the long fights. Hattori's Annihilation does come out, but it's the back of the Metagirls who are still going. There was Annihilation from Kindred as well, but it only found a lamp, and even Sinner's Overclock just falls short of really being able to find any value at all. Metagirls 50% in building. It's looking like this might be a clean 3-0 on Suravasa.
I think this is going to come down to HK. HK has to build this Blizzard in this next fight, and it has to be absolutely massive. I really think that's about the only way that Chengdu is going to take this, outside of a straight pick from Senna.
Iridescent has this overclock as well, so you do have to be so careful of it, especially with that rail shot already built up to 100. Lamp comes out a little bit early from both teams as the Ramatras going head-to-head with each other, but it's Amelia who's able to find that follow-up damage onto Kindred. HK, 94% on the Blizzard, but just not able to build it fast enough. 100-0 to close out the final point of Suravasa. That was not even close. And Metagirls, we were talking about Kindred being perhaps a little bit stronger on this Ramatra, HK as well, favoring the Mei. But they have made this composition look very much their own. This Sim Sojourn has been so good at dealing with the off angles that Chengdu Drainers wanted to play. It's difficult to know how to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, the Chengdu just could not figure out how to deal with the constant Symmetra TPs and the constant bombardment of those alt fires from the off angles. Add that to the Baptiste and the Lucio damage that's just coming in and just slowly chipping away. And we were seeing a lot of times the Lucio getting those little Cheerio headshots, getting an early pick. And I mean, when that's happening, it's going to be really, really difficult to recover from.
Yeah, and it feels like there's maybe a little bit of a disconnect on the kind of tempo that Chengdu Drainers want to be playing on compared to the composition they're running, right? We're seeing Kindred consistently going quite aggressive, and HK as well, trying to find that early positioning advantage, but playing something like the Mei without the Mei mirror on the other side, you can be a little bit slower, you can try and poke it out a little bit, you can have your Ramatra play the space a little bit slower, but consistently what we're seeing is lamps get forced from both teams at the same time. Emilia uses the teleporter from Sim to be able to find an off angle and punish Kindred, who's trying to fall back because of it. But Chengdu Drainers don't have a counterpart on their own side. The Sojourns have to be marking each other. The Mei can't easily just rotate as quickly as a teleporter can, and it's really difficult to be able to find good value off the back of it. It needs to be kind of addressed of like, okay, if we've got a wall, but our lamp is getting forced at the same time, and when we're trying to fall back into space, we're getting shut down by a teleporter, maybe we need to approach these fights a little bit slower, because we know that in like the slowdown period, when we've used our wall and we've used our lamp, we know that Metagirls are going to have the advantage, so we need to make sure that we're burning those resources a little bit earlier. We're waiting until Amelia uses that teleporter a little bit too early in the fight, and we respond to it appropriately. As we go over to New Queen Street, there's going to be the opportunity for both teams to move away from Ramatra, I do imagine, but New Queen Street is an interesting pick for push. It's not one that we usually see. Are you expecting just more Orisa?
Yeah, I believe so. This is a map where you can force dive if that's what you really, really, really want to do, but I haven't seen Chengdu really want to opt that way. So I'm thinking they're wanting to push it back to where it's just a straight up Orisa mirror, because that's the map that they took on Samoa.
Yeah, and if you're able to just keep forcing the Orisa mirror, it's happy days. I am curious about why they decided to not try and do that. I appreciate that Kindred is a comfortable Ramatra play. She is really good on the hero, but if you've already been finding success with the Orisa, now that you're in this playoff situation, going down to the lower bracket isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if you've got to go against a team that you're not confident you can beat, and ultimately you're going to be going against either Metagirls or Green Fortnite in that lower bracket eventually, most likely. So, you know, you don't really want to be down there already. You want to be keeping yourself safe in the upper bracket for as long as is reasonably possible. Metagirls are going to be in the same boat, but it feels like it's been in their hands since map 1 at this point, and I don't know. I'd like to see the Orisa for the Chengdu Drainers. It's comfortable for them. It seems like it was working for a time, and whilst we like flexibility and we like things that aren't just Orisa all the time, I also like it when teams win.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you. And like I said, I don't think Chengdu's looked necessarily bad on any of the comps they played, but they looked the best when they were rocking with that Orisa on map 1. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Kyrie Lucio mirror come out. Or maybe we just go Zarya Ryan. I mean, why not?
I mean, if this is a thing that Metagirls want to do, it's certainly, like, I want to say in quotes, possible. If you're able to play really effectively around Amelia's TPs, then I guess you could set this Rhino, but I'm expecting to be baited and the swaps to come through. Are we really committing to this? We're really committing to this. Okay, Metagirls, just change your name. You're not. You're the off Metagirls. You're the wacky goofy girls. You're the sillies. Like, what? This is not meta, this is Rhine Sim. Maybe this is some secret new Queen Street meta that is cursed that I've never heard of, but the Draeners starting out on the Jungle Queen should be able to get the better of this Rhine anyway. Nice little shout from Kindred to make sure, and the axe is there to try and deny any value from Amelia's TP. The Symmetra is taken out early, and Hitori pins in. Unfortunately, Kindred and Aramori already dead. The tank and the flexible taken out from Chengdu Drains is going to give the Metagirls the advantage, but neither team playing around the push ball.
And I mean, that's kind of expected. Fight one, you just kind of want to, just pressure people as hard as you can. And I mean, there's not much you can do as Ryan other than spin in a circle when you're going against a Tracer. There just isn't. Coming from a Ryan main myself, that's really all I can do in that situation. And we're seeing Amelia swap onto this Bastion as well. Is their whole strategy just going to be burn down Kindred as fast as possible?
I mean, if that is the strategy, then you're going to have to be able to track that cooldown incredibly effectively, because there's the Shout, there's the Speed Amp, there's the Suzy, there's plenty of utility from the Draeners in their dispensary to make sure that this Sun Queen isn't caught out by a stray assault configuration. Iridescent taken low as well, and the Seika gets very aggressive on this high ground in front of Senna, eventually going to be punished for that by Kindred. H-Key is taken out by Amelia's A36 tactical grenade, but a tactical grenade of her own trades back onto Amelia, and even as things go both ways for both teams currently, a nice little heal amp is going to make sure that Kindred stays in this fight. The tank difference is going to come through, and Chengdu Draeners staying stabilized on this push button.
Ooh, you do see Santix taking out Senna though late. That's got to be hopefully some good value there. Yeah, you're forcing the retreat. Amelia takes out H-Key. Yeah, okay. Really nice play. You're going to get some push progress as well.
Yeah, you're probably going to be able to take the lead ultimately, because even though HK and Sinner are going to be able to come back fast, they've now got to set up properly for this fight. The DPS from the Draeners getting a little bit overexcited, perhaps. They will have ultimates to play around, but Santix has this amplification matrix available, and Amelia is going to be deadly through it with this Bastion. The overclock from Senna immediately zoned out by it. Iridescent does go low. Koryu and Seika both building up to these sound barriers for when both teams wants to re-engage eventually, is at the moment just stalling things out and playing things a little bit slow. The shadow from Hitori is good, lands on the Kindred, and the beat from Koryu just a little bit too late to keep that tank alive. The Jungle Queen taken out of the fight. The Sojourn soon to follow, and it wasn't the distance that perhaps you were hoping for, but you will eventually find the lead off the back of it nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be upset taking the lead right there. Nice fire strike from the side of Hitori. And with the Draeners coming back into this fight, they're going to have their Kitsune rush up, and H-Key is probably going to build this Pulse Bomb as well. I think this is going to be it's going to be a difficult fight for the Metagirls to win. You're hoping, if you're the Metagirls, that you can manage to get this checkpoint, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Out comes out from Kindred, and the rest of the team goes in deep. Amelia taken out by Carnage. Shortly thereafter, the rest of the team just slowly falls back. The stick goes onto Hitori, and the Reinhardt is very low, but there's not the follow-through, and that has been the story of the Chengdu Draeners so far. Iridescent takes out a lone H-Key as the rest of her team is just playing around the push button. Even though Hitori is still low, Draeners have to use ultimates to continue the offensive. Kitsune Rush comes out from Aramori just to force this Reinhardt back, but still yet to find any kills until the last possible moment. Amelia does come back on this Bastion, has the assault configuration out, but both Seika and the Bastion very low indeed, and Metagirls forced into full retreat for now.
Oh, these stagger kills are going to be brutal, because it's gonna most likely let Draeners capture this checkpoint. Hopefully not if you're the side of Metagirls, but I have a hard time believing they don't take this checkpoint right here.
The push button is so slow though, and if Seika is able to taxi Santix, maybe you're going to be able to get your Baptiste back in time just to drop that amplification matrix, and Iridescent finds a couple of heads. Less than a meter? No, they're just going to give it up entirely, but Hitori posturing up around the push bot means that they have to rip the amplification matrix anyway. The Reinhardt is so very low, and Santix healing, even though it's doubled, that 300 healing per second is not enough to keep Hitori alive. Amelia as well, using the assault configuration now that the amplification matrix is already out. Aramori able to find the final blow onto that Bastion, and Iridescent taken out too. Feels like a little bit of a misplay from the Metagirls.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna force the death right there, you may as well touch before checkpoint, just so it doesn't get it too far. But we're gonna easily see this hit 100 meters right here, and you're looking at a rampage, sound barrier, Kitsune Rush, overclock, just a lot of ults for the Draeners. It's gonna be real difficult for the Metagirls to not just like fall over as soon as they start pressing these buttons.
This is the key thing for Kindred. We know she likes to go deep with the Rampage, but Porio is always there with the sound barrier to make sure the Jump Queen can stay sustained through it. As Spectrion mentioned, just being able to keep a consistent amount of uptime for your Jump Queen and maintain that pressure for as long as possible really throws off the timing for the Metagirls, who are going to want to play short fights into this. Hitori goes quick because of it and throws in the Earth Shatter, lands onto 3, but no kills found yet because Porio's sound barrier is good and is there. It won't be there for the Rampage, but the picks are going the way of the Chengdu Drainers anyway, and even though the Metagirls tried to find some distance, invested heavily to try and detain it, it's going to be comfortably still in the Drainers' hands for now.
Yeah, and like I said, the Drainers retreated like a little bit, but they just had the ultimate advantage there at the end of the day. And we're seeing now the Metagirls swap onto this Ramatra composition with Mei and Sojourn now. But is it too little too late? We'll have to see, because Senna does have this overclock ready and available.
This is a classic look from the Metagirls. The Ram-based Soj with the Lucio Bap is a strong composition to play into, and it will afford Hitori a little bit more space than previously on that Reinhardt. Trading back your Bap and your Soj at the moment as HQ finds a nice stick onto Santix. The Amplification Matrix no longer in the fight means that sustained healing is not available for Hitori, who already had Nemesis form burned down, and HQ is just free to run circles around the rest of the team, slowly pick up everyone for... Nope, Kindred steals it at the last second. Porio is traded out, but it's just a Lucio, so they're going to be coming back very quickly indeed, and those prolonged staggers onto Metagirls. It's dire.
Yeah, you're going to just retreat again, though, if you're the side of Chengdu Drainers, because you can keep taking the fight right here, because you have such a massive lead. Like, there's no disadvantage for you to take fight exactly where you're taking it at, and Senna still has overclock.
You maybe have to give up the high ground, but when you're playing around this Sojourn Tracer, you can just play these off angles that we're seeing HP consistently trying to sneak around. Overclock from Senna comes out and it's good, forces both Iridescent and Hitori back into the spawn room, and even though this Mei from Amelia is on the field, I can say from experience that Mei is not in the best of places right now, and I feel like both teams feeling the burn on that front.
Absolutely, and it only costs you your overclock if you're the side of Chengdu. You do manage to get Pulse Bomb out of HQ though. Oh my goodness, there's so many ults.
Yeah, there's so many ults, and the first ones to be pulled are the window and the Rampage. Rampage into the window without Porio's sound barrier quite there means that Kindred will eventually fall, but the Kitsune rush is there to make sure that the sustain and follow-up is there nonetheless. A celebratory beat comes through from Porio, but Metagirls might still have time to touch. They're all respawned. There's less than a meter left, and they do come back in. A little bit early there from Porio to celebrate, but HK does find Seika nonetheless. The Blizzard from Amelia doesn't catch on to anyone as a clean disengage coming through from the Drainers. As they re-engage back in, Hitori does have this Annihilation. It was a good pick, and it was an ego beat. But now the Metagirls have it in their hands.
No, don't say anything just yet.
Oh, they should have it in their hands, but you've got to beat an Annihilation up. But apparently you're not able to pull it quick enough to keep yourself in the fight, and Chengdu Drainers just leveled in enough damage to keep that going. The Defender respawns be damned, Senna's overclock chunked in a bit too much. That really should have been possible for Metagirls to keep themselves in for at least another fight. But again, we're seeing the disadvantage of Lucio's being a little bit too conservative with their beats. And eventually, they are going to fall 2-2 now. We're going all the way to a map 5 in the Chengdu Drainers versus Metagirls. And as we go to our 5th map, we are going to be seeing, I do believe it will be Escort, which will be the first time in the Kunoichi Kommotion that we'll be seeing that map type.
Yeah, and I have to be honest, I don't really know what's about to happen here because both teams just rolled each other on maps 3 and 4. So I don't know. Based on what we've just seen recently, the Metagirls are about to roll this last map because they have map pick. But it could go a different way. I don't know.
Yeah, and it feels like, in spite of our predictions, we didn't see any Orisa at all on push. Yeah. Not one drop of it, which I don't dislike. But again, we're in an official. These teams are both here to win. There's no, honor bonus at the moment, aside from a little bit of, okay, yeah, you get the swag of, okay, we won without having to play Orisa. But if you're losing without playing Orisa, you don't get any clout from that. You just lost. So, as we do go over to Escort, I'm not surprised if we do see the Orisa coming out eventually. But as both teams have shown, they're comfortable on Ramatra. We know that Kindred can play the Sigma as well. Depending on the map we go to, I mean, maybe we're going to be free from the horse for this series.
Yeah, I mean, Escort in particular, there's a lot of high grounds on all these various maps. I expect us to see another Winston mirror like we had on Paraiso.
Interesting. I mean, I don't dislike a Winston mirror. I think it will just be dependent on, like, are we actually going to a map where that's going to be viable? I think when you're playing around the high grounds, it's really nice. The problem with a lot of Escort maps is that they have crazy long sight lines, and it's so easy to break that Winston dive by just being able to spam out the monkey early. It's difficult to be able to set up for it, but if you're able to get a map where you can make that work, and the Metagirls, they do have that map selection, yeah, it's definitely something that you can play around, and there are definitely going to be some dive-intensive maps in this pool that are going to be coming up, so depending on where we go, yeah, the Winston mirror, very viable. Kindred maybe going to be floating the Diva, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and just don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break with the Map 5 pick. You know, you always love to see a Map 5. It's going to be super close, super entertaining. Hopefully it's not a roll like the last two maps were, but there's honestly no telling at this point. So we'll see you guys in about 5.
Feel my heart, it's beat tight. All my body's breathing, it's just you and me. Feel my heart, it's beat tight. All my body's breathing, it's just you and me. I'm so caught in this, we're so lost deep in it, can't stop. I'm forever the one you call. Let's free fall. I'm so caught in this, we're so lost deep in it, can't stop. I'm forever the one you call. Let's free fall. Let's free fall. Let's free Feel my heart, it's beat tight. All my body's breathing, it's just you and me. Feel my heart, it's beat tight. All my body's breathing, it's just you and me. I'm so caught in this, we're so lost deep in it, can't stop. I'm forever the one you call. Let's free fall. I'm so caught in this, we're so lost deep in it, can't stop. I'm forever the one you call. Let's free fall. Let's free fall. Let's free Let's free fall. Let's free fall. Let's free fall. I'm so caught in this, we're so lost deep in it, can't stop. I'm forever the one you call.
Welcome back to Kunoichi Kommotion. We have got A full series going on here all the way to map 5 already between Metagirls and the Chengdu Drainers. They've really been going at each other's throats throughout this series, and we've seen some interesting picks as well, both a little bit pleasantly surprised, I think, to not see as much Orisa as perhaps we expected. And as we go over to our next map, I don't think we'll be surprised if we see even less Orisa.
Yeah, definitely. With the last map pick coming in as Shambali, I expect to see like dueling Ramatra compositions, honestly. A lot more similar to what we saw on Flashpoint, which makes sense when you consider that the Metagirls absolutely rolled on that Ramatra mirror on Flashpoint.
This also kind of feels like a little bit of a secret weapon from the Metagirls, though. We've not seen Escort so far in Kunoichi Kommotion, with it being map 5 on previously what was first to 2s. It was never going to come up in the pool in the first place, but now that Escort's able to come through, I'm going to reveal one of their secrets. Okay?
Oh, okay.
One of their little secrets live on broadcast. They've listed their favorite composition as Sigma Poke comps. This is the kind of map type where if you were going to do this, this is where you'd want to do it, and it makes sense. We were talking a little bit about maybe we were going to see some dueling Winstons coming through, but if you're a team that actually just secretly loves Sigma, going over to Escort and being like, okay, we're playing full poke, right? We're going over to Sigma and we're going to really throw a spanner in the works in what you're expecting us to do. It can catch a team off guard, and yeah, this is the moment that you want to be doing it against the Chengdu Drainers, who have been able to take you to a map 5. This is probably going to be the closest match you'll have throughout this bracket, unless you're really able to take it to Green Fortnite. Going over to Shambali, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw dueling Rams, but if you list your favorite composition as Sig Poke, and then you choose Shambali for your map pick, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Sigma either.
Yeah, we definitely could see Sigma. That would not be a surprising pick at all. But it appears as though, at least for the time being, Metagirls are opting for that composition that won them Saravasa so easily. So, well, we'll see. We'll see, though. Looks like the Drainers are actually going to come out on a Malga composition, which is interesting.
I mean, if you're expecting the Ramatra, then the Malga can just, like, throw damage in really early on. With you being on the attacking side of an Escort, if you just find one pick onto one of the defenders, it can really put you in good stead to be able to snowball throughout the rest of first point. But it is still an oppressive high ground that you're going to have to play into, so I don't imagine this Malga is going to be staying for too long. Hitori starting on the Ramatra, I do feel like the Ram and the Sig are kind of interchangeable, and we can see already posturing up close in a range that the Sigma wouldn't be able to play at. It makes sense. Senna starting out on the Ashen, H-Key Junkrat. Allison, what are you cooking? Is the kitchen on fire right now? We'll have to see in a moment. Early teleporter comes through from Amelia, but quickly shut down by Poryu and the gang, who finds the first pick onto Iridescent. Senna takes out Saker as well, and H-Key off the Junkrat, onto the Tracer. No more silly goofy time. Out of the kitchen and onto the cart.
Yeah, the one positive thing about that, if you're the side of Metagirls, though, is you took that fight literally at the spawn door, so you're gonna get another fight potentially at this first corner before it rounds. Hopefully, at least. I don't know, it's gonna be close. But shout out Senna, already 65% to this Bob. A lot of dynamite damage coming out from them in fight 1.
That's kind of a disadvantage of taking that fight so close, is that you die quickly because you're in bad spots. You don't get to build as much ult charge, and this Bob might be all that Chengdu Drainers needs to be able to finish off first point. We are seeing the stall around the archway choke point, and Amelia has the wall forced out already, goes low, but I don't believe has to use the cryo, which means that May is going to be able to maintain their posturing for now. Kindred, just trying to find any space. Indeed, an H-Key finds the punish onto the May. That's the May on May action. When you're familiar with that hero, you know the tempo of those cooldowns. And even though there's a little bit of overhealth from the shout from Kindred, I don't think it was all that necessary. Senna goes a little bit low, but Chengdu Drainers are cleaning up this fight very handily.
Yeah, the Drainers having some really good success with this Ash Junker Queen composition. I guess it's just the extra poke damage coming in from the back while you got a queen in your face that you can't turn away from. It's just kind of difficult to deal with. And are the Metagirls even going to be able to get a touch here? Surely they do.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. You've got all the people in the world you could want to drop. Amelia's going to be the person. Dynamite does force out the cryo a little bit earlier than perhaps you were hoping, and the Bob is good, trying to find some kind of counteract onto the window that was dropped by Stantix. HK's Pulse Bomb forces out the lamp, and now the Kitsune Rush from Aramori is going to try and put the nail in the coffin of first point, but the sound barrier from Seika keeping Metagirls alive for now and allowing Amelia and Hitori to be able to build up the ultimates of their own. The sound barrier from Koryu comes through too, which gives Hitori an open field day to be able to pull the Annihilation whenever they want, but Chengdu Drainers are forced back for now regardless. HK caught out a little bit too deep away from her team, and Hitori now going in deep with it. Amelia's Blizzard comes out, isn't able to force Kindred into the freeze, and now with the Annihilation through, Kindred's Rampage is going to purple Hitori. The Ramatra and the May went a little bit too deep. I'm a little bit surprised, I'll be honest. Iridescent is able to trade back, and Kindred does go down eventually, but already Chengdu Drainers are forcing the fight back on cart. HK taken up by Iridescent, and Amelia manages to find Aramori, means your main staying power on the card is removed. The Drainers very close to being able to turn that fight around.
Well, it looks like we're finally getting the Orisa duel that we've wanted to see for so long. Most of this riveting gameplay of this Orisa coming out right now. Great recovery though from Metagirls to really turn that fight in their favor, and they're gonna have the amplification matrix advantage, but don't look now, HK has another pulse bomb, and they've been incredibly good this entire game with getting these landed.
Yeah, Allison always can be trusted to be consistent with making sure that you're able to force out as many resources as you want with that pulse bomb, but Cryo and Lamp, I mean, there it is, that's exactly what you want. Being able to force out 2 invulnerability cooldowns at the same time with one, what is essentially a long cooldown. Really the best thing you could hope for in that situation. And Chengdu Drainers, they're playing a little bit slow as they get towards the last 10 seconds, but they know they've got the advantage in terms of cooldowns for the rest of this fight. Senna builds up to the Bob and it comes out just to try and close this out. Less than a second left, and Senna does go down to Iridescent. Not enough peel to keep that Ash alive, and even though the Bob is there, there's a Blizzard and a sound barrier to keep Metagirls going, and it looks like Chengdu Drainer's attack is going to come to a halt just a few meters away from first, but not able to cap it out.
Yeah, plus side, that's pretty typical of Shambali. Shambali very rarely goes past first point when anybody is on it, so you know, nothing crazy there. This is one of those maps you can be fuller held on. Reminiscent of Rialto or Gibraltar, or what is up with all the payload maps being fuller hold maps? Now that I think about it.
I mean, I think it's just that teams are able to play around, especially if you're able to stall the cart just before capping first. The attacker side respawns become even longer than the defender side respawns in being able to get back to the fight. And the defenders have the advantage of things like the high ground that they can play around. It becomes a lot easier to hold a position when you're playing on the defensive. And then if you're able to stall it just shy of first, you get the respawn advantage as well, which usually is in the hands of the attackers. Chengdu Drainers, because of that, would have been hoping to clean up that fight a little bit sooner, but really good responses from Metagirls to make sure that even in those ult fights where they overextended and they were losing them, they were extending so deep that Chengdu Drainers were having to spend all of the respawn time from Metagirls just recovering the space that they'd previously lost. Really nice play from them overall.
I gotta give a shout out to Amelia as well. Amelia getting big time value out of this May with the blizzards and everything. Like, we haven't seen it be super successful on the other maps thus far, but just the persistency of continuing to use the May and just finally on this map figuring out how to get it done on that hero. Really love to see it.
Going to be starting with it as well here are Metagirls. Amelia floating the May. Iridescent staying on the Cassidy just so that they can make sure that HP stays marked on that Tracer. Already Kindred burned down by the sheer damage output. A nice wall from Amelia to make sure that that health deficit just couldn't get recovered in time by the Chengdu Drainers, who, with only a Kiriko on the field, a good wall is more than enough to burn through all that health pool.
Yeah, and with the way that Metagirls are staggering out this fight, we're going to be moving into last fight territory most likely, just because you're going to round this card around this corner before the side of the Drainers are going to be able to re-engage you again.
If there's any advantage, it's that, yet again, HK kind of does have the ult advantage at the time being, but as you're slowly building up towards that pulse bomb, it's again a matter of just trying to force out Lamp, force out Cryo, and another good wall means that Kindred gets caught out entirely. Not enough burst damage to save her from that, and like you said, Metagirl's pushing towards last fight territory in this series.
Yeah, I mean, just another great wall, catching out the Orisa super early, and we're seeing Kindred having to swap onto this Doomfist. No touch.
Oh, no touch.
No
It's
touch.
tragic. There was the opportunity for the casty to be able to drop Hitori calls the C9, and I'm tempted to agree. Oops, the objective. Forgot about it for too long, tried to play your cooldowns a little bit too tight and punished for it. Metagirls closing out this series 3-2. It was very close indeed, but this team have looked very strong, in particular, on their own map picks.
Yeah, seriously though. And like I said again, I said it right before that round started. Shout out to Amelia, figuring out exactly where to get those wall placements on that Mei. You pretty much didn't. There wasn't a fight there that was like a real fight because the wall was catching somebody out so early. You're just getting a stagger fight at that point. Like you don't really have the chance as the drainers to compete because you're down your tank so early from those walls.
And it is an opportunity now for the Chengdu Drainers to go down into the lower bracket, take the experiences that they found here, and maybe come back and punch up a little bit, right? They know some of the strategies that Metagirls are going to be trying to employ. They've got time to figure them out and come back with some problem solving, but we will be seeing ourselves in the lower bracket later on today. For the Metagirls, still sitting very comfortable in this upper bracket, and will be going against the winner of Green Fortnite versus... I've forgotten the name. Unfortunate. Unlucky for me. I've been so busy casting on a different role that I forgot the basics of which teams are in this tournament. I'm sure that I'm going to have Rhino whisper in my ear, maybe, but Green Fortnite versus Chillionaires. That's it. Chillionaires. They've got such a good name. How could I forget that? Chillionaires won 3-0? I'm a little bit surprised, I'll be honest. Green Fortnite was very much the confident team going into this, but that is a sweep. Look at this bracket. This is...
Yeah.
I mean, Green Fortnite and Chengdu Drainers, they've got some really big names, people that we will recognize. Chillionaires, it's not like they don't, and Chengdu Drainers don't either, but I think if you were just looking at the roster pound for pound, this is almost the opposite of the upper bracket you would be expecting going forwards. Nevertheless, it's now a matter of either Green Fortnite or Metagirls are going to be out of this tournament altogether for the EU side of things. Later on today... I'll be there for it, but unfortunately, Shadow, I don't think you will be. As we close out this series, is there anything you want to say? Thank you for filling, but take it away.
I mean, I had a good time seeing a good series. The last few casts I did were all 3-0s, so it was really nice to see something, a little more entertaining. Really great from both teams. Chengdu having to go against Green Fortnite in that lower bracket. That's going to be a tough one for them to take. And Metagirls playing Chillionaires in this top bracket. Based on the fact that Chillionaires just took down Green Fortnite in that 3-0 fashion, maybe that'll be another close series as well in the top bracket. We can hope for it at least.
And I believe I will be there for it, but not quite yet. I'm going to give myself a break. We're going to get a new co-caster in. I'm going to be moving away from play-by-play and back to my home territory. Hope you've all enjoyed so far in this first match of the Kunoichi Kommotion playoffs in EU. We'll catch you again very shortly.
You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love.
say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
Water is the softest and most yielding substance, yet nothing is better than water for overcoming the hard and rigid, because nothing can compete with it. Lao Tzu.
Name straight, new wave. 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 Yo. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yo. ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yo. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yours.
Hello and welcome back to the Kunoichi Kommotion. I'm Fifi hopping in here with the lovely Willowtron for the upper finals of the EU. We've got Metagirls versus Chillionaires, so this should be a good one.
Yeah, like we were talking about kind of before the break, this is perhaps not the two teams you're expecting to be in this first upper bracket match if you were just looking at the rosters pound for pound, but nevertheless, they've made it here, and I'm excited to see what they roll out with. Chillionaires in particular have done some interesting things throughout the rest of the Kunoichi Kommotion, so as we get into our first map of Samoa and kind of compare our teams, I mean, there's plenty to look at, there's plenty to kind of break down, but we kind of tone things down a bit. Remember the previous round that we just saw with Metagirls versus... why do I've burned myself
Chengdu.
Chillionaires versus... No, Metagirls versus Chengdu
Yeah.
Drainers. Wow, I'm so tired. I'm not
All
used to
good,
being
all
awake on
good.
EU hours. And they did pretty well on pretty much a whole slew of different compositions. We saw Ramatra, we saw Orisa, we saw Winston, so... Playing into Monarch, who usually just loves to run Roadhog, I'm interested. I'm curious, to say the least.
Yeah, one thing I'm particularly interested in, we saw Kindred playing the Mauga a little bit. It wasn't really working out, but into the Roadhog, interestingly enough, right, the Hog doesn't really have much to stop just the ridiculous amounts of damage that a Mauga could put out. So I'd be curious to see if Hattori feels comfortable enough to try something like that out, or, you know, I mean, the thing is, Roadhog's also just not a very good character in theory, so, you know, I mean, he's not meta for a reason, so you could just stick to what you like playing. I mean, there's also just the chance Chillionaires decide, well, the Roadhog was fun, but we're gonna put it away now that things are getting serious. So, I mean, anyone's guess. We could see just the most wacky comps in the world, or maybe we'll just normalize back to Orisa. Who knows?
It's entirely possible, but for Chillionaires, you have actually now beaten the favored team in your first match of the bracket playoff. So now that you're in the upper finals as well, you can kind of rest a little bit comfortable going like, if we do want to run the Roadhog, we could, and then all we have to do is like beat the same team again, potentially. So it's not the end of the world if like you just want to go for another 3-0 in the lower bracket and then come back in for those grands, but yeah, for both of these teams, you're sitting pretty. They've both toppled the teams that perhaps were a little bit more favored in the matchup. Metagirls went very close against the Drainers, which tracks with what we saw yesterday, or didn't get to see unfortunately on stream, but saw from their overall match stats at the end. Either way, these teams are both proving themselves as perhaps underdog juggernauts that I wasn't necessarily expecting to be quite as strong as they have been, but nevertheless they are. And as we start out on Samoa, it'll be really interesting to see, like you said, which kind of compositions they do want to be hovering off, just to start us out in this series.
Yeah, I mean, even because I feel like Samoa is also like, it's varied and then also like a little strange on what people like to run, because I mean, it's still a newer map, so I mean, people still kind of experimenting, figuring out what they like to be running on this map. And then there's also, you know, I mean, obviously different maps play to different strengths, right? Like Volcano tends to be very brawly, but, you know, something like Beach, I've seen like some Sigma. I still see, I mean, obviously a lot of Orisa. And I think we saw Metagirls roll out on Winston Torb. So,
Yeah.
I mean, crazy things can be run here.
And the Winston Torp, again, this is probably going to be Metagirl's pick, I believe, just on the way that the seeding worked. So if they're confident in the fact that they can maybe try and force that and make it work, then yeah, sure, go for it. Why not? At the moment, we're just hovering bog standard Ramatra, but at least it's not Orisa, unlike the Chillionaires, who, in spite of me being so ready and so excited for the Roadhog, are just going to be starting out on the Orisa, which maybe explains the 3-0 sweep they had against Green Fortnite earlier today at EVA. Starting on that Kiriko and Fieri on that Lucio was going to be a killer backline to deal with, whereas Santix beginning on the Baptiste to complement the Ramatra a little bit better. It's punishable, but you have to acknowledge how you're going to punish it to be able to get on top.
Yep. This Ramatra, a bit of an off-meta pick, but I mean, if anyone's going to run it, Hattori has been looking excellent. I mean, Chengdu just did not seem to know what to do against this character. Now walking up with the shield, going for a bit of a slow, bit of a poke, but going to just be holding on to that form for the moment as some nice control here over the point. Chillionaire is going to have to try and step back up into now Metagirl's space as Seika with Iridescent trying to look for a little bit of a push-up, going to just back up a bit of that push and pull, but that Sheep being the first to go down is now a lot of pressure onto Hattori, but it's Monarch overstepping, and that's going to be Metagirls with a nice first fight to open up this series.
And we can see just how effective the Ramatra is at cooldown cycling, trying to force resources out of the Chillionaires that are eventually going to be punished once they're gone. Metagirls are playing around this so well, and Amelia as well, playing on this Cassidy to start with, means that there's all the more pressure onto Sheep. Iridescent could mark the Tracer, or Amelia could mark the Tracer, and Kuna, having to build up to that rail charge, the only real target you have is Satori, who's played around corners so cleanly, it's difficult to find any value.
Yeah. I mean, just when you're playing this clean Ramatra gameplay, it's really hard to punish as a Pulse Bomb. Going wide, but not the end of the world here. A window available, going to be popped out, and that's a lot of pressure onto Monarch, but Seika first one down, and now a rush to try and counteract for the Chillionaires, but just a bunch of ults to try and slow that down, and now the gold coming out, Monarch so low, the Suzu will keep him alive, at least for the moment, but I mean, it's just not meant to be, as Sheep looking for the Pulse Bomb. Not gonna find it, will go down, and that's now Metagirls 60% and counting with the stagger onto Fiery. I mean, this is just looking perfect from them.
Seika and Fiery actually both went down at the very start of that fight, both at like 95% to sound barrier. Either one of them would have wanted to use it there to complement either the window or the Kitsune Rush that EVA threw in, but Chillionaires at the end of the day getting the worst of that fight, and now 80% in building for Metagirls. They've got Annihilation, they've got Beat, they can stagger out this point for as long as they want to just build up to OT.
Yeah. I mean, this is just rough for Chillionaires, even if they get into this right, then it's 99-0, and you've got to build up from there, but that's a nice start. Kuna with the overclock, going to be finding two, making this Sojourn work wonders, and that's Amelia on 1 HP. The BAP just off to the side, not really able to help out, and will be going down as well. And that, I mean, if you are going to work your way back into this, it's got to start like that.
Yeah, but Metagirls did a really good response on that. They saw Seika go down early and went, okay, we no longer have a sound barrier, we're not going to just throw Annihilation in for the sake of it just to try and stagger out. We can already play for that 99%. So now they get to re-engage back in with basically all 5 ultimates when Chillionaires only have a Beat and a Terror Surge to work with. Those are things that you can just play around and eventually burn down. EVA has to farm for Kitsune Rush here.
Yeah, I mean, Metagirls have the sacred strat of 5 Qs and Monarch's already down. Kuna to follow. And I mean, not even going to necessarily need all 5 of those ultimates. I mean, Chillionaires just wiped off the board, and a convincing start there for Metagirls on their map pick of Samoa.
Who played a really nice ult macro in particular. It's something that we were talking about as like a focal point of Metagirls versus Drainers, was Metagirls are just consistently like finding a little bit more value in the ult fights when they feel they're confident with the tempo. And I think the momentum that they got in that previous series is carrying them forwards. They know how to not overextend and overinvest. They know that they can just play the space that they've been given, and Chillionaires, they're constantly having to try and take disadvantageous fights, constantly trying to re-engage, constantly down on cooldowns in particular, which, if you are the Metagirls, knowing that you don't need to press Q in those situations is critical to making sure that you can maintain a confident lead in this series. And we can see how they were able to quickly run away with that first submap Chillionaires going to be starting out on this Orisa again, but Metagirls, there's the Winston that we were talking about. Santix on the Ana as well. It's just going to be more ult macro realistically when you're playing with something like a Primal and a Nano Boost.
Yeah, no Torb this time, sadly. Victoria trying to go in, but it's Monarch with the counter. And the problem with this Ana break is it's just so static, and it could mean just an Orisa walking on in, but it's actually going to be Hitorio walking on in, and that's the Sojourn already down. It is traded, but I mean, that's a trade you're happy to take any day of the week, and you also just going to be able to cap up this point. I mean, this is just, again, good start here for Metagirls.
I'm really excited to see Staker actually on this Lucio. I think Brig, like you said, is very, very vulnerable instead. But now the Lucio has the advantage of being able to either help out the Sojourn on these off angles, as we can see, or peel for the Ana if the need arises. Hitori finding Kuna again. Chillionaires are really struggling to find any footing here.
Yeah, I mean, Monarch was trying to walk up, and the rest of the team not really ready for that. So, I mean, Metagirl's able to just pounce on the back line, and at the same time, Monarch taking just heaps of damage. Now I'm going to swap over to Winston, and I like this, right? If you want to play against this static backline, you got to be able to get onto them, right? And now having the Kiri Lucio, you can just jump on in, Kiri TP in, and things will be looking good for you as Chillionaires trying to get in aggressive, and that's Seika going down, but the Nano onto the Sojourn to try and get some kills. She's so low though, 1 HP, will finally be able to go down, but not before Iridescent has just been wreaking havoc on the Chillionaires, and again, 60% here for Metagirls. Things are just looking great for them.
And again, it was just Iridescent putting the fight on their back and deciding, you know what, even though you managed to trade 2, even though we didn't find value with our Nano onto our Soj, I'm just going to kill everyone. And if you can keep doing that every single fight, sure, go for it.
Yeah, and now Hitori going in saying it's my turn to kill everyone with the Primal Rage, but just chunked down, maybe a little too aggressive, a little too audacious there, but the Overclock, they still believe they can win this, and a nice nade from Santix. Maybe it is, in fact, winnable. It is traded back, but the Overclock still online. Maybe makes it possible. They're going to invest the barrier into this as well. The Doomfist coming back for Hitori. They believe in this fight when Fiery so low. If they could find that Lucio, then maybe, but with Monarch's Primal, with Amelia going down, and with the flip on over, that is Chillionaires getting it back. But again, it's after the Metagirls are already at 99% and they're fighting this. They found out Kuna, who popped that overclock and wasn't able to find anything with it. And I mean, Hitori just looking for more on this Doomfist. Monarch so low, not even going to be able to get back over to the point. And maybe I need to clean my glasses. I do not believe what I have just seen.
Metagirls played a real risky gambit there. We were talking very positively about, in the previous sum up on Volcano, how well they played that ult macro, knowing that they could just re-engage with 5 ultimates after giving up some percentage. This time, they opted to give up all the ult charge by changing their composition entirely, throwing their ultimates in the previous fight to burn them out of Chillionaires, come back in with a really fast-paced composition so that you can keep the fight going, and they're able to win off the back of it just about. Kuna, as you mentioned, pops the overclock. That's the big fight turner that Chillionaires still had in their back pocket, but immediately shut down by Hitori's punch from the Doomfist. Just really clean play overall for them to acknowledge, okay, we've just about got enough resources to make this work. They've burned all of theirs, so if we come in really quickly, maybe we can find something here. It was risky, right? If that doesn't pay off, you've completely changed your composition. You've potentially thrown away all the ult advantage that you would have had by just playing it slow and not caring about like 20% on the objective. But if you want to have that clean 2-0 sweep on Samoa, that's definitely a way to put your foot down and say, no matter what we're playing, no matter the situation, we will win this map. And the previous series that we saw was very close indeed, but if this is anything to go by, I don't think it's going to be quite as close as perhaps we were expecting in this upper bracket finals.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just like beautifully played there from Metagirls, just knowing when they can take those battles. And I mean, I feel like if you're Chillionaires, you're as surprised as I was that they tried to fight that. It just seems like it should not be a winnable fight at all if you're at the Metagirls, but it is by like just a hair, and they know that, and they're able to then go in off of it. And I mean, as you were saying, if that fight goes south for them, I mean, that could be them losing Beach, honestly. That could start a snowball for Chillionaires, but I mean, just surgical gameplay there, excellent decision making, and with that, I mean, just an excellent start to the series, just with a clean 2-0 on Samoa.
And for Chillionaires, it kind of raises questions of like, we were seeing the kind of Sojin take weird positions, we were seeing them constantly punished, we were seeing cooldowns forced all the time. What happened with that green Fortnite match? I kind of really want to see it now
I
because
think it was a
I'm
forfeit,
sure there's
actually.
Oh, was it really just a forfeit?
I
Okay,
believe so, yeah.
that might explain something, because I was going to say, being able to 3-0 the team that, I mean, basically has the most stacked roster in all of EU for Kunoichi Kommotion, that would be a feat and a half. If it's just a forfeit, okay, yeah, I can kind of see where it's going. Metagirls are going to be having in someone else instead. I think Santix is going out, so instead we are going to be having Amelia. Aina, sorry. This is, I don't know. I don't dislike it. If you want to commit to this Moira in particular, we can see her floating it at the moment. There's definitely the opportunity to be able to make that work if you just want to play a super fast composition. And I think it is going to be difficult for Chillionaires to recover from that, because the way they seem to want to play the game is a little bit slower. They are getting caught out by the pace of Metagirls pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely should be interesting. I think the Moira's like a little bit worse in theory than like a Kiriko, or I mean, if you're on the Winston, than an Ana. But I think the thing is, the Moira is just, you're able to have such a high tempo, and it makes it so hard to keep up with it. So I think it's possible here. Metagirls are like, okay, we kind of played a little slower with like the push and pull on the Ramatra, with the Ana, with the Winston, right? But now we're gonna just completely switch things up on you. Just hold W all day long, and you're gonna have to survive that storm. And I mean, it'll be really hard to live that if you're Chillionaires. But I mean, if they're able to, you know, kind of play it perfectly, they can shut down a Moira. If that is even what comes out, then they could be getting a little bit of an advantage here.
I do think the Moira offers something comparatively to the Ana in the sense of you're so survivable. You don't have to worry about your Moira constantly being harassed by like a Tracer, or the Ana peaks slightly and the Sojin just takes her head off. Like, the Moira is just a little bit safer of a pick and has that burst healing through the orbs as well. When we're comparing it to a Kiriko, it's kind of a matter of ultimates, right? You're looking at something like the Suzu and the Kitsune Rush is generally higher value than things like the Orb and like the Coalescence, but when you're looking at how quickly Coalescence is online and how quickly those orbs come back, like you say, it's the tempo play that really brings Moira into her own. As we go over to Hollywood, this was Chillionaire's map pick. Are we expecting necessarily like a Moira, Winston, Lucio look? Because if you wanted to play super fast, Hollywood and hybrid overall, I was reading chat, is definitely an option for you to be able to do that.
Yeah, and actually I think what we might be seeing instead, right, instead of swapping up just the flex support pick, is maybe this was actually instead an option to play the Zen. I was thinking maybe like a BAP Zen Sigma kind of look, but it seems instead on a Zen, Roadhog, and also the Venture. Okay, Winston makes more sense with this. So a pretty greedy backline here, having that Discord and the nade, but I mean, you can just get so much value if the opposing team is not able to punish your backline.
I do think, though, it has the same problem as the Ana Brig. It's a very vulnerable backline, and with no real counter dive in play and Chillionaires running a Winston of their own, Metagirls are going to be very careful to make sure that this Ana and this Zen aren't immediately forced out of position. You can see Iridescent setting up around these off angles to counter dive, and the Venture is so good at making sure that they can just get in and out, constantly leveling in that damage. Chillionaires backing out for now, but with the longer cooldowns burned, they have the opportunity to engage.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be careful there, Sheep. I mean, Venture doing so much, but again, here's the back line, very exploitable. Will be going down. A nice dive there from the Chillionaires, but I mean, still some low members. Iridescent still looking for something. Actually, if she can just survive here, there is potentially a recontest, but with Hitori going down, this looks like it's going to be a take for Chillionaires.
Sheep chased that as far as they possibly could just to make sure that Hattori wouldn't be able to cleanly re-engage with the Tracer. And even though Iridescent is going to try and stall out for a second, just going to have to give that one up eventually. Like we said, that backline from the Metagirls is vulnerable, and immediately Chillionaires just forced cooldowns, took advantage of it, got the point off the back of it. Now 5 minutes going into second.
Yep, I mean, excellent start here for the Chillionaires. If they can just keep that up, keep just all-inning on this Ana Zen, I mean, there might just not be a whole lot that can be done about it, but Metagirl's gonna have to look to go first, get that value before everyone dies, and that's Sheep just getting exploded. I mean, you have to be so aware of this venture. If you are not at all times sure where their position is, they could just be right behind you getting that kill. Will go down, and actually Monarch believes this is still winnable, popping the Primal, but is just slept on up, will be woken, but I mean, antied, Discord, 1 HP, probably not long for this world. And Hattori also in the opposing team's backline, cleaning things up, just making sure there's no chance Chillionaires can do anything in this fight, maybe even getting a little bit of a spawn door touch here, as Metagirl's going to stabilize here a little bit on second.
It was interesting to pop the Primal there after you already knew that you could, like, maybe follow through from Hattori, but when you down your venture and you go for it anyway, and then it works out, you can't criticize it, and this is, I mean, that's nasty.
That's just mean. I mean, they just nano venture ult. Kuna's just instantly dead. I mean, what are you to do about that? I mean, fortunately though for Chillionaires, that's just a really fast fight where they used 2 ults though, and you've still got a massive time bank, so I don't even think you're too upset about that.
No, you've got Rush and Beat as well. Even though Metagirls are trying to hold close, as long as Chillionaires don't invest to uproot them here, they're going to have those ultimates going for the rest of seconds. That's not going to be very possible with Monarch already dead though. You're just trying to break this close hold at this point, and every ultimate that Metagirls invest to maintain it is one that you don't have to worry about. But honestly, Chillionaires are kind of getting rolled at the moment. It's just little lone picks over and over again, and Metagirls are happy to maintain this stranglehold.
Yeah, I mean, Chillionaires finally gonna have this ult advantage, but they're gonna have to use it to break out of their spawn, and then they have the rest of second point to worry about, and they think they have Hattori cornered, but no, there's a primal rage here. Kuna's gone down. Hattori perfectly healthy, going to be able to get out of this, gonna be able to get 2 kills as well, and yeah, now actually touching the spawn doors. How do Chillionaires break this?
I mean, it's a matter of you have to invest, right? Okay, gotta take a call real quick. The call said it's time for me to lose this objective. Transcendence Reminder is good, but not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, gonna have to next time make sure to trank while your Winston is still alive and emoting. I don't know, that's just a bit silly there from Hattori, but again, I don't think they're too upset. They've got the rest of second point. Okay, this might... I mean, what's happening here, Willow? I don't even know what I'm looking at.
It's just Metagirls not wanting to give a single inch where they don't need to, which, like, if you're able to maintain this and just, like, mechanically outplay over and over again, then fair enough. But I do believe Hattori's brief business break is going to be the downfall of the Metagirls being able to maintain that. Eventually, Chillionaires breaking into Street space. A nice anti from Seika, though, to put the stop on for a little while, forces the beat from Fiery.
Again, Hattori just going to make sure to survive. Nice little Zen kick there to keep Monarch far away from the backline. So, I mean, Metagirl is still pretty solidly on this high ground now. The Nano onto the Winston, going to just be going for this counter dive, trying to chunk Monarch, but Monarch, Primal, didn't choose to invest it, which is an interesting choice. Had the rush as well, but now that's just a ult that has been wasted, essentially. And Willow, I'm going to call back. I mean, this point started with Chillionaires having 5 minutes in the time bank. It's dwindled down to 1. And, I mean, Metagirl's barely given up anything. This just is going to look like a hold on second.
It was the call again. Hattori manages to end the call in time on this occasion. Didn't get caught out in this occasion. Amelia is a 10 out of 10, but her tummy hurts, apparently. And going into the next fight, that's going to be an opportunity that Chillionaires have to take advantage of.
Yeah, now Hattori in the back line again with the Primal. This time, though, taking just significantly more damage, but it doesn't even matter. Fiery's gone down after a nice juggle, and going to now go up top. Kuna got slept, was Suzu'd, but not going to be able to be saved from Hattori and Iridescent. And now 30 seconds. It's going to have to be a quick reset here for Chillionaires if they want any chance.
Oh!
But cheap with a nice stick onto the opposing Tracer. Amelia goes a little far, and Metagirls getting a little cocky here. Going to have to go for a fight at the end of second, as now Chillionaires gaining a lot of space, going to be able to go fast onto this Ana Zen if they so desire, and that's the Zen gone down. Iridescent going to be fighting for the point here, but going to just have to chill out with Hattori going down. Probably wants to play to live to get a stall fight.
Iridescent has to go for the counter stick here. Surely you've already forced out recall. You can't let yourself be the worst Tracer. The gap cannot be allowed to remain. Surely we get one. Come on, I can see the observers want it too. We're all hoping for it, but Iridescent playing this a little bit slow. Fiery does manage to find Amelia, and Chillionaires off the back of it probably just going to be able to cap out second.
While we were enjoying the beautiful Tracer duel, I mean, Chillionaires just walking on forward, killing all of Metagirls. And it does take the full 5 minutes, but they get the cap on second, and I mean, it can just be so brutal, as we've just seen, to get that point capped up, especially into a team comp that benefits so much from that high ground. So, you know, even just getting to third is worth all of that time. So Chillionaires now, it's just about how far they can get on this
It
third.
really is a good advantage. Like, being able to cap out second is not something you always see on Hollywood, and when third's in play as well, you could play for a different composition if you want. Metagirls have the ultimates to work around at the moment with the Nano and the Primal, so gonna stick on it for now, but needs be. There's always the swaps in the wheelhouse.
There's a Nano Zen in your backline, but it doesn't matter. Already going down, and I mean, the rest of the team will follow. I mean, that was an interesting choice there to drop with the Zen, and Hattori also committing the Primal. I mean, we'll be able to find out Fiery though, so after a quick reset, they will be able to be up one in this next fight.
30 seconds left. It's going to be very easy for Metagirls to be able to force this to be an overtime cap if Chillionaires are able to find out third as well. But there's an overclock that's already been pulled.
Oh, but Kuna's
low,
won.
but if they
Looking
can
for the
survive-
pulse bomb, will be able to survive though, and already has found one. The Tracer also going down. Monarch in the back line, and I'm sorry, Saika, you're not long for this world. Now looking for the Zen as well, just as a little extra treat. And with that, Hattori's going to have to back off and play kind of this push and pull on the cart, just trying to both survive but also stall, waiting for the rest of Metagirls to get back. But there's a Sombra now online, putting a lot of pressure onto Hattori, who is now one. Going down, that means not really the tank presence here for the Metagirls, but they do have a Trank and a High Noon to try and live this one out. But now both of those characters going down. The rest of the remnants of the Metagirls scraped off of the objective, and that will be Chillionaires getting the full cap, albeit in overtime.
I liked the fact that Metagirls were willing to swap for third in particular and just move over to something a little bit fresh. I just think they did it a little bit too late, and the swaps weren't exactly what you'd be looking for. The Doomfist is, like, fine if you want to get back really quickly, but they had the time and the space to be able to go over to something like the Ramatra or like the Orisa, which can just kind of sustain for a really long period on the objective itself. We also saw Chillionaires recognize, oh, they're coming back Doom? We'll just swap Sombra. There's not really an easy way of being able to immediately address that when the Sombra just comes out at the last possible moment, because you're already in panic mode. Your brain isn't thinking about problem solving and properly playing around it. You're just suddenly confronted with being hacked, and then you're dead. So really nice play from Chillionaires to recognize, okay, the swaps have come through, but we can also just counter swap, and it's going to be something even better. For Metagirls, I think they got a little silly. I think there was a little bit of silly goofy that was going on, okay? And it is unfortunate that because Amelia said the F-bomb on the first map, she will actually be permabanned by the end of this tournament. But, you know, PJ's not in the lobby quite yet, so there's still the opportunity for Metagirls to show off that they can put up a more convincing attack. It was an overtime third cap for the Chillionaires, so there's opportunity for Metagirls. It's just about really taking advantage of it and not doing something stupid again, like taking a phone call in the middle of the round.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to mention it, but I mean, if they don't cap third point, we've gotta come back to that one more time, because I mean, honestly, that could have been the difference. I mean, you can't be getting that silly. It's too much. It's too much silliness. But okay, Metagirls coming out on nearly the mirror, still with the Venture though, so Amelia is going to be looking to get into that backline, not even able to before going down, but still a lot of pressure here from Hattori and onto Hattori, but going to survive for a moment. With Aina going down, I mean, Chillionaire's weathering the storm, and that's going to be them starting out with the first fight.
A few little snags as well. Iridescent kind of caught out in this back, just trying to find any kind of way out. You're forcing space at the moment. There's only Amelia on the Echo to really be able to capitalize off the back. Tori
And it
does come
works.
back in, and you trade sheep, but holy, that shouldn't have worked.
They just all back up looking for the Winston, looking for the Tracer in their spawn, and they're not able to find either of them. And then they walk back into an Echo who's just ready to go kill. And I mean, that's just kind of a ridiculous bait play from Metagirls to get them on a second.
There's Seika hard carry. Yeah, the Lucio doing all the work in that fight indeed. Acknowledged by Aina too. Hitori already has this Primal Rage and is going to use it deep. Fiery's very low, with Lucio just surviving.
Yeah, but I mean, for a moment at least, as Hitori's still looking for it, getting this juggle, but the Primal runs out. Fiery, you're safe for now, as Hitori gonna have to back on him, get some health back. But again, Amelia, I mean, I'm wondering why they didn't try this Echo before, because it's just killing everyone.
Billionaires, they've got 4 ultimates at least, so they're going to be able to deal with it, but the one that they don't have is Overclock. So again, there's just more opportunity for Amelia to play around this high ground and dominate Chillionaire's continuously. We can see yet another attempt here, I think, for the stick onto the Tracer, but no. Onto the Winston.
A much more measured approach there, instead of the flashy play, going for the more solid one, and it does work out, but there is a duped Primal looking for the Sojourn. Will be able to be kept away, at least temporarily, as Amelia still in this fight, still able to look for these kills, as, I mean, going to have to be careful there. She has to use recalls, stuck kind of in, and ooh, just some 2 quick headshots. Amelia finding out Sheep, and I mean, now this is looking good for Metagirls, and even better because Chillionaire's decided to invest that Kitsune Rush, which is such a powerful ultimate. And speaking of powerful ultimates, I think that's a phone moment there from Seika, just investing the beat for no reason.
I know, Hitori's got to take a call, okay? Just, you know when you take a phone call and your friend, like, yells down the phone to, like, really obnoxiously bother your parents? That's it, okay? Seika was like, oh, Hitori's on the phone, better drop a sound barrier right now. There's the Winston, still having a conversation. The best way to do this is to just spam, like, got it, understood. Alright? If you're not saying, like, hello and then talking at the same time, wasted the telephone.
And I think it's so funny, while we're just talking about Seika just randomly using B, Iridescent is in the back line just killing everything. It's just kind of ridiculous, but now into this next fight, Kuno with the overclock, trying to look for anything, but will be the one under pressure instead, and will go down before that beat can be dropped. So now Iridescence, I mean, just looking really for the scraps that are left to just clean this up. Hattori using the Primal just because, honestly, why not at this point? Going to be taking a call while in Primal.
Phone call from your boss.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of just ridiculous confidence from Metagirls, and I mean, honestly, with good reason. I mean, they're doing all this silliness, and they're still here with 4 minutes, but Amelia will go down. That should be just a way into this fight here for the Chillionaires. Tori gets their 1, but I mean, that's going to be all she gets, as Chillionaires getting back into this, now on the Sarissa comp, which should be better suited for 3rd, so maybe that can be their way back into this, because they need to stop Metagirls from capping with over a minute.
I really like this swap from Chillionaires, and it does give them the opportunity to just play for a really, really long stall. Amelia duped the Orisa already, but that's very easy to burn through.
Yeah, and the window as well, just to make sure both tanks now for Metagirls do not get to have lots of HP, as Hattori has already gone down. The Terra Surge comes out here for Amelia, but won't really be able to do a whole lot, as Chillionaires able to just do their namesake, chill, stabilize, and I mean, weather the storm you would think, but Kuna has gone down. They need to make sure the Terra Surge is in this just to clean this on up. But I mean, kills still being found here by Iridescent, who is remaining just insane on this Tracer. Monarch's gone down, and now I'm starting to believe in Metagirls here. As Hattori, there is a win. You cannot be on the phone at this moment. And
Iridescent is good, but Iridescent isn't that good. You do have to be present in the map for them to be able to carry that hard. Finding 3, but then there's a phone call that has to be taken. I mean, if it's a business meeting, you know, I can respect it. It's very important indeed. And no matter how good Iridescent does, they did get stuck earlier, so it is over. They are washed, in fact. But now Metagirls, they're going to be able to come in with Rush and Primal, so Chillionaires, there's no rest for them.
They do have the beat to counter out, but the Rush will be lasting longer, but not long enough to keep Hattori alive. But now that's the tanks traded out. If Kuna can live with this High Noon, that could just be the fight winner. Lots of skulls, but it's actually Sheep's Pulse Bomb that's going to do the majority of it. And now Chillionaires, they've gotten it down to 1:45. If they can just hold on a little bit longer, they've at least secured that second overtime round.
But it was expensive for them. Chillionaires had to invest the beat, the pulse, and the Deadeye just to make sure that they could hold on. And Metagirls, they still have the Primal. They're going to build up the dupe. They're going to have another Pulse Bomb. With only 90 seconds left, Chillionaires probably won't have time to build up their ult bank again. So Metagirls can take this fast.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the Pulse, there's the Primal, and now the lamp is gone, so Eevee will not be safe at all. Kuna able to survive by going back into spawn, but that's the only way to live. And that's Metagirls taking it with 1:10, meaning it's either a win for them or going to be a draw.
It feels like they probably could have been able to cap it out with about 3 or 4 minutes as well, but just decided to give some, I guess, maybe like mercy time, I suppose, to just like let Chillionaires farm them for a little bit and then come back in. Yeah, it's mercy time. 1:10 is actually very winnable for Chillionaires still on the defense if you can just like bunker down and full hold, especially when you're not necessarily playing the ult game. It doesn't feel like Metagirls have been getting the advantage over Chillionaires in the majority of the neutral fights. Just a few mistakes that Chillionaires have made that have been exploited, and with them starting on this Orisa composition, I do like their odds of just being able to stall out the objective for as long as possible. A draw here for Chillionaires isn't ideal, but at this point it is all you can play for, and if Metagirls, who have been playing a little bit silly goofy, who have been doing some wacky things, start getting punished for it, Chillionaires start finding their groove, start finding out ways to kind of counteract Metagirls even when they're on form, the mental is going to slowly start to crumble, right? The cracks start to appear, you think to yourself, oh, are we actually in risk for this series, you know? Chillionaires maybe draw on this one, take the next map, there's definitely an opportunity for them to come back in strong, but Metagirls, we've seen what happens when they lock in, and at the end of the day, 1 tick is all they need. They're in good chance of being able to find it.
Yeah, but I mean, good chance here for Chillionaires. This is essentially just one fight they've got to win out. So if they can do that, they're still not in a bad spot, and that's with the Winston going down early. That will mean that, I mean, because of just how fast this fight was taken, there will be another fight here for the Metagirls, but if that fight goes long, slight ult advantage here for the Chillionaires, as Sheep now all the way up to 60 on that Pulse Bomb.
Any of those stagger kills that Kuna would have been able to find would have been crucial. Everyone's so low and they're still finding heads, but it's those key moments now that Hattori is already set up on the high ground where your Cassidy has to come in clutch.
Recall forced for Sheep already, but not going to matter too much, but I mean, that's the cast going so low. Lamp has to be invested. They have to stay on the point. They can't let this 1 tick be given up here, as, I mean, just so much pressure going on to Chillionaires. Monarch, 1 HP will go down, but Sheep has the Pulse Bomb, is able to find out Amelia. If they can just get a stick, maybe, but not able to quite find it, but Kuna finding the shots instead. Lots of damage here onto Aina. The Kiriko going down, and, I mean, Iridescent found out by the High Noon, and just Hattori, who all alone, not able to do enough, and Chillionaires win out their one fight they needed and draw here on Hollywood.
Really nice from Sheep as well to acknowledge. Like, we can see Monarch kind of trying to mark the Winston and also Iridescent at the same time, and just too many angles was that Orisa pulled in, but Sheep's there to follow through on the damage that was done nonetheless. The Pulse Bomb doesn't find the stick, but Seika takes so much damage from the explosion radius anyway. It is going to end in a draw, but it kind of feels like Metagirl should have had the opportunity to be able to win that one confidently. Chillionaires staying in this series for now. I said that it maybe wasn't going to go the whole way, but I think maybe the players just hate us. Maybe they just want my voice in particular to be dead by the end of today, because we are at least going to a 4th map on this first of 3, even in spite of how strong Metagirls have been looking. And as we said, Chillionaires, this is their opportunity to start eking their way back in. I believe with it being a draw as well, they're going to get the next map pick, seeing as they got the previous one. I don't know quite how that's going to be ruled, but either way, as we go over to Flashpoint, it's not a huge difference, right? It's NJC, it's Suravasa, you're not really going to care which one you're getting a lot of the time, so no matter what, it's going to be an even playing field. Everything's going to be reset. It's a blank slate, okay? The stick onto Iridescent didn't happen. The F-bomb didn't happen. Metagirls, you can come back into this and just win, maybe, if you feel like. What Chillionaires can show us that they've still got
phone
hands.
calls.
If we stop
Maybe
taking
we
phone
stop
calls.
taking phone calls.
If.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of trolling there from Metagirls, but I mean, Chillionaires, at the end of the day, they are able to withstand the pressure that was coming through there from Metagirls. They're able to secure the draw. They saw the first series today, went all the way to map 5, and they were like, well, that's a little bit boring, isn't it? And let's go to 6 this time, why don't we? But for your sake and for mine, let's hope not. But I mean, maybe Chillionaires, if they want to win this, it's at least going to have to be 5.
Yeah. And we will be able to see the remainder of that 5, I believe, after a quick short break. I'm going to recover my voice, drink some honey's tea. We'll catch you again shortly.
Hello and welcome back to the Kunoichi Kommotion. We've played 2 maps in the upper finals, and yet the score still says 1-0. Must be a bug there. I don't know what's going on, but now Flashpoint. Gonna have to call tech support or something. But yeah, okay. Suravasa, what are we thinking about this one, Willow?
I mean, I think the key thing is that Amelia is out and Santix is in. Santix is the usual flex support player for meta girls, and the only real reason I can see you doing this is if you're either wanting to do more wacky stuff or play something that's a little bit more double hit scan. Amelia has kind of been the sort of Soj hit scan player, but has also floated the Echo a lot. So Santix coming in, I think we will see either like a Soj Casti or the Tracer Casti that's being floated at the moment. Aina as well, staying in as well. Seika's going to be there at the same time. So you've got the opportunity for either the double flex support or to play like a Lucio kind of Ana look, or Bap look perhaps, for Aina, who is kind of like that flex support player. I think it's an interesting swap to make. I don't think like Amelia's been doing bad. I mean, you mentioned yourself that the Echo has been really effective, but when you're going over to Flashpoint and you want to play super strong, maybe like take advantage of the longer angles that you can play around, I guess you could kind of go for this. There's also the opportunity of just like, you feel like this match is in the bag, really, right? You're confident going into it. So let's just get some of our players some more practice, perhaps, you know, going into some of the later stages of the playoffs where maybe you're not feeling as confident. We are going to be seeing Santix hovering Venture at the moment, which is not what I was expecting, but some teams have just found that they just have a cracked Venture player, and if this is what you want to go for, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
Honestly, Willem, I feel like the reasoning might be Metagirls just thought it would be funny to play musical chairs, so they just thought it would be a good time. As okay, I was gonna say if we see Zen Lucio Ram, I don't know, I'm gonna lose it, but okay, Bap Lucio Ram, pretty normal. I mean, the Ram a little more off meta, but still definitely playable, and we've seen Hattori do good things on it. And maybe the bigger question is, can Santix really get that value out of the new character? But I mean, it will be Kuna striking first blood, showing the value of this Sojourn. Throw another in there just for good measure, and gonna be sending Metagirls reeling to start out Suravasa.
I think this is going to be a kind of compositional problem, where Chillionaires are just able to throw so much damage into Metagirls all the time. Hittori is usually going to be riding along those cooldown cycles, but the Orisa's cooldown cycles are so much quicker, and the Baptiste can just constantly be leveling in damage. With now Santix still on the Venture as well, and Iridescent on the Tracer, it's going to be really difficult to force out pressure onto the Baptiste, because all of the cooldowns will have to be used just to get up to the high ground to contest.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also going to be really difficult to pressure this Sojourn, right? And because Kuna's the only one playing Sojourn, I mean, that's just a lot of free range, a lot of free value. So Santix going to have to be trying to get on Kuna, shut that player down. But I mean, it will be Iridescent falling before any pressure even comes Kuna's way. And I mean, just again, this is just a nice fight here for Chillionaires, and 60% counting. Metagirls, if they are able to get back in for another fight, it's going to be scrappy.
The Venture just able to squeak out there, but Kuna has just been basically uncontested, as you said, and Iridescent going over to the Sojourn to try and mirror it now, but it puts more pressure onto Santix to keep Sheep marked on that Tracer, who will have the pulse bomb available. Hittori also now on the Orisa. I think this is pretty much mirror compositions, just without the usual Kiriko. Metagirls have a chance to touch, but just barely.
Yeah, I mean, just getting onto the point, but I mean, Santix just immediately gone. I mean, I feel like the story of this first point has just been why you play Sojourn. Like, Kuna has just been getting infinite value. No one has been able to touch them on that character. And, I mean, yeah, Metagirls have to run back to their spawn, which, lucky for them, is a lot closer now. So they're going to be able to actually be winning this fight out with those quicker spawns. But, I mean, the first point's already captured.
That spawn change really did come in clutch for Metagirls, who looked like they were maybe at risk of getting staggered out there, and it's going to put them in good stead to be able to take the next flashpoint as well. Nevertheless, Chillionaires are going to be able to re-engage relatively quickly, Metagirls. They have ultimates to work with. There's the Tectonic Shock, Sound Barrier, and Amplification Matrix that Eevee used on the side of Chillionaires, but again, the Overclock and the Terror Surge already there and already pulled.
Yeah, mirror beats, so the overclock, the only difference. Terra Surge coming on in, the boop back into it is massive there from Fiery. Going to net Monarch too, but Monarch is 1 HP. Santix did find out Fiery as well, and the point is still here for Metagirls, so they might be able to win this one out, but the HP bar is just not quite high enough, so Chillionaires making their way into the second point.
Sheep just on cleanup duty to make sure that Orisa and Venture can't just find all the value in the world. Sandix on this Venture has been really good at just constantly leveling in damage and pressure, but the Chillionaire's response and the way that they've played around their ultimates has been so clean so far. This is the kind of team play that we wanted to see if they wanted to be able to put a real name for themselves in on this series. Finding an early pick onto Aina is definitely going to help with that.
Yeah, and now they can, if they can get the rest of these players cleaned on up, that should just be the point in their favor. But Hattori says, anything you can do, I can do better. Finding 3 on their lonesome and just going to flip it back just like that. They don't even need the BAP.
If anything that does kind of play into Chillionaire's favor, it's you were slightly ahead on the Flashpoint progress, and also you didn't invest any ultimates of your own in that fight to try and turn it around, so you've still got your amplification matrix, you've still got pulse, you're going to be able to build up to an overclock that Metagirls now can't mirror for the next few fights, so there's opportunity, but as that point percentage ticks up very quickly, you have to set up fast to really find advantage off it.
Yeah, I mean, by the time they get over to this point, it will be on overtime. So they're going to have to make sure to stay on the point as well, and, I mean, Chillionaire is looking to go fast with this window. The stick, just so much pressure onto Hattori to make sure nothing like last fight can happen ever again. And that should be the advantage now with this tank presence, able to be on the point here for Chillionaires, but not for Metagirls. And even if they can't find these pickoffs, they will be able to have the point back into their control, but they will definitely look for these staggers. So much pressure onto Seika, will find out that kill, and they might honestly able to be getting some more, but they do have to be a little bit more careful with the Orisa coming back.
Kuno is still so low, has the overclock available. We can see Monarch just trying to shepherd that poor Sojourn back to safety in the overclock. Does get pulled early as Hattori tries to touch, but that's so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, the lamp comes out late because Kuna's just zoning everyone with this overclock, and that's just going to allow Chillionaires to get themselves up to a 2-0 lead here on Flashpoint. I mean, they are looking just excellent right now. What do Metagirls even do to stop this roll?
Go back to something that they're actually used to playing, mayhaps? I feel like we're seeing exactly what I said that you don't want to happen to Metagirls happening. They got a little bit overconfident, they did some silly, and now this map is running away from them at record speed. Metagirls going back over to the Kiriko with Aina, I think is going to work out. This composition is better, but now you've got to play against the ult disadvantage, and you're 2 points down.
Yeah. And I think one thing, I don't think Iridescence is doing bad on this Sojourn, but just gets so much value on the Tracer that's not there anymore. As she finding the stick, not able to get the kill though, as Santix looking for the dive onto this Sojourn, who is very low. Pop up, but we'll have to back up because there is a BAF to support there, and it will be Monarch the first to go down, so that should allow Metagirls to walk on up, and they do have to do it quick with their Kiriko now down. They don't have that sustain, but Kuna now on the Sojourn, just finding their counterpart and finding out Hattori as well. I mean, Kuna just has been so deadly on this character, now looking for Santix, who is now 1 HP, and it should be Chillionaires getting this first capture.
It was a really nice read from Chillionaires to recognize that they could back out and re-engage, and Hattori, maybe over-investing with the Terror Surge there, used that ultimate before the point was even capped in their favor. Now Chillionaires get to use their own ultimates without a response, just to maintain their progress on this flashpoint.
Yeah, but Kuna, with a spin in their face, not really able to find a whole lot of value, so maybe going to be wanting that one back, but they do still have the window to work with, going to try and push back in with that ult, but they will be meeting a rush. The Kiriko so low, if they could find out that support, that could be huge, but it's their support going down. And now, I mean, this should be Chillionaires getting cleaned on up, and Metagirls able to get their way into this third point.
That was a deep window from EVI to just like try and force a whole bunch of space, but Hattori's response was exactly what you want to do in that situation. just run past it with a spin, right? It doesn't matter if those projectiles have double damage. If you're spinning them and eating all of them, it then forces Chillionaires to push forward to be able to play around that window, which means that they're just in Metagirl's space entirely. Went a little bit deep, got punished for it.
Yeah, as now Santix, the one going deep, will find out Fiery, but instantly traded back, so not a whole lot there, but Kuna 1 HP, and I mean, just some nice primary fires there from Hattori will be enough damage to get those kills and to get them 60% and counting. This should be Metagirls in pole position to get this 3rd point and finally get themselves on the board on Saravasa.
A nice equalizer for that objective percentage. Iridescent has the overclock as well, and Sacred Sound Barrier is there to be able to sustain it through. But Chillionaires are going to be able to build up to an overclock of their own if they make this fight last, and Fiery's Sound Barrier could be all they need to continue to build that progress. Ooh. Kuna already won, but Santix goes down first.
Yeah, Beat to respond to this overclock, and now Iridescent is isolated, still getting that support, and the Beat is perfectly timed. Now Fiery is the one in danger. The Terra Surge not able to quite find the value it needs to, and Iridescent, because she is just able to survive, she gets that value from the Sojourn in a prolonged fight, and Chillionaires get wiped off the point. And now Metagirls, they might be able to swing this map back in their favor with this momentum.
Really nice micro play from Metagirls to recognize, like, when individual players just didn't want to use cooldowns, be able to escape from things like Monarch's Terror Surge, be able to play around the positioning, even though Iridescent was caught out, Seika's like, okay, well I can just beat you and you'll be okay. It's really important that when the fight evolves, you can respond like that.
Yeah, and the Kitsune rush past the window one more time will find the Baptiste out. Sheep still fighting this, will be able to get that pulse bomb kill and might be able to survive this, but no, Santix winning out the duel, and I think that is crucial here for Metagirls to now once more get the first capture on this point.
And Chillionaires invested. They used the window, they used the pulse bomb. They won't have Fiery Sound Barrier for a little while yet. And EVA going over to the Kiriko. Like I mentioned, this is the stronger iteration of this Orisa composition because the Baptiste is just pretty easy to get on top of, and the window is a little bit more difficult of an ultimate to get real value of compared to Kitsune Rush. Nevertheless, Metagirls have the advantage now because of it.
Yeah, as now Hattori walking on in, has this Terra Surge, is able to chunk Eevee, but they are able to get away with that swift step, and it's actually now Hattori who's too far in, will be found out, and the point will be flipped back over to the Chillionaires.
Hattori goes very deep with the Terror Surge just to try and find anything at all, and whilst I don't dislike it, it does put your team in a difficult position because if they want to follow through, they have to walk in front of Kuna, and they have to challenge the off angles of Sheep, who are just going to sit there and spam into you all day, find those kills, deny that follow-up that you needed to make real value come off of that. Metagirls, no ultimates, and only 50%. This could be match point.
Hattori's just walking in by herself, getting a kill, but I mean, again, too far for the team to be able to follow up on it, really, and now this overclock has maybe been a bit wasted, and I mean, Chillionaire is now looking good to close this map out. 60%, they're getting the staggers. Metagirls, no ults to work with here. This is going to be very difficult to get back into.
Iridescent throwing in the overclock, as you said, pretty much just an error. There's no real reason to do it when you'd already lost that fight, and now you won't have it for this last fight territory when Chillionaires have basically 5, only the overclock from Kuna not there, with the rush to start it out.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb not able to find anything in the rush. Is just going to be denying space. If they can get Santix off the point while still zoning the rest of the members of the Metagirls, then that'll just be the map. Santix 1 HP, but I mean, Monarch's just in the back line getting all the kills anyways, and that's Chillionaires with a team kill, fighting back, and now 1-1, we're all evened up.
Chillionaires have really come back in fighting on Surabasa. Like, this was a team that previously on Hollywood, Metagirls were literally just like BMing, sitting on cart, typing in chat, spending the whole time like not fully locked in. You were 1-0 up in the series and you felt like you were the better team and you were super confident. And now you only got one flashpoint. This wasn't even a particularly close map. Like, losing one flashpoint on a map like Surabasa is mostly just a tempo game. You're just doing that for the sake of your own macro so that you've got ultimates for that third and final point that you actually want to win. So from Chillionaires, this was a really good showing, and for Metagirls, I guess you gotta lock it in a little bit. You gotta start taking this seriously again. We didn't see any phone calls on this occasion, and I think we can see why, because if you tried it, you wouldn't have even got a single point on this occasion. Going over to push, it's another map type that's very easy to snowball, and yet again, we will definitely be going to at least 5 maps, because we had a draw in round 2.
Yeah, and I think Meta Girls are now in a really weird spot because they really need to rein it in, right? They need to calm down with the ego. But the problem is, like, if you kind of overcompensate, if you worry too much about the last 2 maps, right, then you can kind of lose confidence, and then maybe we stop seeing all these ridiculous individual plays that I think have been so good for them, and maybe you know, they get a little tilted, and then it throws off their ult game, which we've been saying has been so excellent in this tournament so far. So I think it's a very tight balancing act here for the Meta Girls, because you can't keep doing what you've been doing, but you also need to not like swing too much the other way. So I think Meta Girls can get back into this, but I think it's really going to have to start on this next map. If you lose this, I think the mental's just gone, and I think Chillionaires are just going to take that and run any day of the week. So, but if they can win out this map, or, you know, honestly, even if they can just start well and get the momentum back for them, kind of restabilize, then I think they'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, and that is really the key thing, is making sure that your mental doesn't go. I mentioned it before this map, like, if you play silly and then you lose the next map, it's very easy to feel yourself just kind of slipping away, like, oh
Yeah.
god, the panic setting in. Oh god, things aren't going
Like,
well.
now
I
it's
need to panic.
serious.
Yeah, now you've really got to try, because you thought this was a series that you could not necessarily worry about so much, like an opponent that you didn't have to take with full gravity, but they beat you now. They beat you on at least one map, and they made you draw on another one, so even if you felt like you had the advantage, you do have to be able to push back and properly prove that you should be in that grand finals match. Otherwise, it's back down to the lower bracket, and when you've lost that momentum, when you're not feeling confident, that's when teams like the Drainers and Green Fortnite are going to be able to take advantage of your slightly lowered mental state compared to perhaps when they played you previously. As we go over to Esperanza, I mean, it's a particular push map where, like, you could run the Winston if you want, and we've seen teams hovering this. Metagirls in particularly, with this being their map pick, are going to be able to run the Winston if they really want to. I do think it is one of their favored compositions. But Orisa is still good here. You're going to be playing for that initial setup, and we've seen teams, if they can just win first fight and then position perfectly, doesn't matter what comp you run, you just can't uproot them.
Yeah. Will be interesting to see what teams go for here, like that comfort, or maybe sticking more to the meta. As I mean, their name is Meta Girls, so maybe they'll opt back into it. As it does look like they are going to favor that Orisa. We'll have to see, but I think one thing that I do like seeing is we're back to the lineup that Meta Girls started with. They were shuffling things around, they were getting a little silly, and I like this to kind of ground themselves to go back to what they started with.
Yeah, Amelia back in on the Echo and Sentix, playing the flex support, starting off on the Kiriko on this occasion. I think this is just the strongest iteration of this team. Kuna's really been warming up on the Sojourn, but will probably have to go over towards the Cassidy if they want to be able to properly contest Amelia's Echo performance. For Chillionaires, this will probably force some swaps, but again, if you can find early positioning, you'll have the advantage nonetheless.
Yeah, so both teams moving towards the bot, and Iridescent, I mean, this is why you want her on the Tracer. I mean, had to move over to the Sojourn for a bit, but if she does get to just play the Tracer, she can just be winning out the duel every time. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And with that, that just gives Metagirls so much space to work with here, so much less pressure going to be out onto Hattori, so just going to be able to walk and get the bot start pushing.
And Metagirls are taking the high ground. They are playing this sensibly. They're not wanting to over-aggress. They just want to take the space that is really valuable to them. And the advantage they're going to have is Chillionaires have to invest just to try and get them away, but not even off the push button.
Yeah, just off the high ground. Oh. I mean, I said it. Iridescent is just ridiculous on this Tracer. And again, it just opens the floodgates to lose your Tracer. I mean, that's just a lot of pressure gone. And I mean, Metagirls with 2 fast fight wins, and I said it, if they come out of the gates swinging, I think that will be a very good sign for them, and they have done exactly that.
Una hasn't actually fallen yet, which means that they've not had the opportunity to switch over to the Casti even if they wanted to. Now close enough to the overclock that they probably won't want to, but forward spawn's almost already capped for Metagirls. Kitsune Rush from EVA to try and change the tempo, but Metagirls can respond.
They try, but Hattori just gets burned down in the middle of that rush. And Iridescent is still finding out kills, but they are down one, so this should be good for Chillionaires, but I mean, you've got to be careful. You never know with Metagirls. They sometimes just pull out fights they have no right to, but this time that is Chillionaires, and they're going to start getting some progress on this push bot.
Rush investment from EVA means that Metagirls can respond with Santix's own, and it's kind of uncontested, but in terms of overall ult game, Chillionaires are kind of doing better in general. The key point is going to be Fiery's sound barrier. If they can't get that online soon, Santix's Rush is free.
Oh my god, Kuna is just all the way in looking for the Lucio who will go down. Sojourn Dupe trying to ego duel the Sojourn, not going to work out for Amelia whatsoever. And I mean, that is just excellent work from Kuna. I mean, this is why you play that Sojourn. You don't even care that there's an Echo if you're just going to be getting kills like that.
And it is on Amelia to be trying to take these angles a little bit differently, to not get caught out by a Sojourn player with a full rail and an overclock who's just going to be able to immediately burn you down out of everything. Earlier from Santix to deny forward spawn, but Monarch's there to deny it.
Yeah, but taking so much damage. Oh my goodness, just burned out entirely. This is now Sheep looking for the pulse bomb. If maybe that can be found out onto the Orisa, this is possibly winnable, but with the beat, I mean, this fight's no longer winnable, but I think you're just perfectly happy to get that ultimate out if you're the Chillionaires.
Chillionaires are going to be able to re-engage with Kitsune Rush again, and they did find the lead. Not quite the forward spawn that they've been hoping, but when Santix had to use their own Kitsune Rush, Seika had to use Beat. All you have to play around now is Hitori's Terror Surge, and if you can just get a nice stick from Sheep, some damage from Kuna, you're not too worried about that.
Yeah. I mean, Terror Surge is such a fake ult sometimes. You think like, oh, I'm gonna kill so many people, and then you're just dead. But, I mean, this time it's Eevee who's just dead as, again, I mean, I've talked about this Echo. It's so good as Amelia continuing to just get these kills on the Echo, and, I mean, Sheep's Pulse isn't going to matter if your whole team's dead.
And Seika running down the Tracer as well means those extended staggers go onto the DPS. Even though the butt scratch is in effect, Chillionaires aren't going to have an easy time being able to re-engage before this push bot is already starting the long march to be able to get back onto that final cap of Esperanza. Metagirls, they don't have a huge ult bank to work with, but they keep finding the picks.
Oh my. Like, I feel like this is what was missing the last two maps. I feel like Metagirls, when they're at their peak, like they seem to be at the moment, right? They just find these kills because they're so also individually talented, right? So people will just fall before fights even start, and that makes the game so much easier to play for the Metagirls.
And from Chillionaires, it's a matter of being patient, right? It's not losing that mental game, being like, okay,
oh my
we
goodness,
don't have to take every fight. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep getting caught up by a Kiriko on off angles, or you're just gonna lose. Maybe we won't even see 10 minutes here.
Yeah, I mean, they heard us worrying about how long this was going, and they're trying to speedrun for us here, as now the rush is coming out from both sides. And, I mean, Kuna trying to find value out of this overclock, but pushed all the way back by that Terror Surge, not even going to be able to find safety or shelter in their spawn. But, I mean, Hattori solo will be able to be traded out, so that should be Metagirls being stopped right here. But I'm 127 meters, and Iridescent's still trying to keep going with these kills. I mean, this is just absurd, but Chillionaires, so much work to do if they want any chance of getting back into this map.
You can see Metagirls are unwilling to give any space if they don't have to. Even as Chillionaires start building back up towards ults, it's going to be the case that Metagirls are wanting to have them of their own. Seika's sound barrier going to match Fiery's. Chillionaires, they don't want to give this up, but Metagirls are so strong right now, and an early beat is going to give them opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that beat is so early. Chillionaires not really responding and not really able to push back in, but that is a nice pick from Kuna. The Terror Surge to deny, but again, it's just so easy to hit that Sojourn when she, or the Orisa when she's standing still. But, I mean, Sheep still trying to find a way back into this fight as Hattori so low, and Santix as well. So Chillionaire's just barely holding on in these fights.
That was a pulsable time
worry about it, don't
from
worry
Sheep.
about
We won't dwell on
It
that too
happens.
much, but it does mean that now you don't have it compared to Iridescent, who's going to be able to come with a pulse bomb of their own in this next fight. Metagirls as well going to be able to re-engage with Terra Surge and the Santix, still keeping relatively even with EVA on that Kitsune Rush charge. The only main pain point for Metagirls, no sound barrier for quite some time. Didn't get the value they wanted, even though Chillionaire's was forced early.
Yeah, as now, I mean, Emilio looking for something behind, but I mean, Kuna well aware of it, and now building up to this rail. And I mean, now it's the dupe. Oh, and that's a nice javelin to start the fight out. The Terra Surge as well. It will be Suzu'd, but I mean, frankly, it's just an Overwatch 1 Orisa pull at this point. Just bringing them all into one space, setting it up for the rest of the Metagirls to just find those picks.
We've got about 3 minutes left on the clock. This is time for Chillionaires to be able to kind of stabilize and then make that salty run back all the way through the map. But the chance of you being able to take the lead before overtime is hit at this point is very low indeed. Even with Hitori coming back on the Doomfist, if Metagirls... Okay, actually going to switch back to the Orisa. If Metagirls wanted to play really fast, I guess they would have had the opportunity to do so, but actually just wanted to play a little bit of Mystery Heroes there and keep us guessing. Chillionaire's posture up around this high ground.
Yeah, and this puts Chillionaire's in a awkward position, but I mean, that is Metagirls kind of giving up space, but now the rush, the stick, Monarch has to be so careful under so much pressure, so low, and that is DPS being traded out, but look at the space gained here for Metagirls. The beat to counteract, though, will have to send Metagirls away, as now Hitori, the one who is just taking so much damage, but with the damage out here onto Eevee, I mean, you thought that she was going to be the one in trouble, but no, finding just a beautiful kunai, and honestly, that could just be the difference in this fight, as now the Tracer not here to do anything, and Hitori playing a little bit of Bring On Around the Rosie, but just going to be postponing the inevitable there.
The little horse hiding behind a corner. It was kind of cute, right? You see them like, no, please, don't kill them. But it is, as I said, now just about a minute. If you want to be able to push into the lead, you are going to have to do it in overtime because there is such a disparity in the distance. Metagirls about 80 meters ahead currently, and with only 60 seconds left, Chillionaires have a fight and a half ahead of them.
Yeah, but if you want that to begin, you should get the ball rolling now. Is Iridescent looking for the pulse, and it doesn't stick, but it still finds the kill. Monarch looking to equalize with the Terra Surge, does find out the Kiriko. That is a big pick, getting the healing off the table, looking for the Genji, who has gone down. Monarch doing big things in this fight to try and turn this around here for the Chillionaires, looking now for the Lucio as well. Seika so low, but not able to quite be found out. Hitori as well, but did find the pick off onto Sheep, and more Ring Around the Rosie, but will go down, and that is Chillionaires winning out, getting this checkpoint, but I mean, they're still low, and I mean, members traded out, so they're not going to be able to get too much advantage from this as Metagirls find their way back into it.
They don't have to push. Metagirls can literally just stand there. Chillionaire's the ones who have to re-engage, and every ultimate they use now is an ultimate they won't have as they start to try to close out the map. Monarch finds an early pick, but it's not the value you need when you're in this overtime situation, because it cost you to get it.
Yeah, but this is big. I mean, 2 picks already found out, and that Rush invested. Rush is such an important ultimate to have, and I mean, you have to use the beat for it, sure, but you're happy to trade those. As I mean, someone please kill this Orisa before someone gets staggered. But they will find that pick off, and Chillionaires, I mean, if there's any time to do it, overtime is great, because now the spawns are longer here for Metagirls. If they can just win a couple of fights, this is doable.
It's doable, but again, every ultimate you have to invest is one you won't have. Seika now has the sound barrier advantage confidently over Fiery. Yeah. Iridescent is going to have a pulse bomb after Sheep uses theirs. Hitori and Monica matched on Terra Surge, but already that Orisa is so low.
The stick, but I mean, the Kiriko is just able to TP away, but while the Kiriko is TPing away, Kuna goes down. The dueling Terra Surges won't even matter because Hitori's is just better. And now it's just Monarch who's going to get cleaned off the cart, and it's just too little, too late for Chillionaires, and it's Metagirls going up 2-1.
using Seika's sound barrier to just push very aggressively, force out all the resources you could for your Orisa. Iridescent as well, using the Pulse Bomb just to force out the Suzu, meant that it was just a free Terror Surge for Hitori at the very last moment, and like I said, it was just a matter of resource investment. The more resources you have in those clutch moments, the more likely you are to win, and something like a sound barrier where you can use it defensively, or you can use it to enable your team to push the aggression and try and close out that map. It's such a flexible ultimate in the way that you can try and utilize it for your team. And it's something that, unfortunately, Chillionaires had already had to expend in the previous fight just so that they could get Butt Scratch. It was an impossible situation, and I'm not surprised to see Metagirls close it out. But it was a closer map than perhaps we were expecting. There was a period where we were like, are we even going to see 10 minutes? Are we even going to see 8 minutes? Because I think we were 5 minutes through, and that final point of the map was already very close for Metagirls.
It was almost a full cap, yeah. I mean, a couple of picks were able to mean the spawns being so close could stabilize things for Chillionaires, but for a second there, I mean, it looked like things were just all over, like a total collapse, but they do bring themselves back into it, and I think, I mean, it doesn't really matter for Metagirls. They got the win, they're chilling, but for Chillionaires, I mean, you kind of needed that, right? Like, sure, you still lose, but if you lose 130 meters to 40, I mean, how, like that's almost unrecoverable mentally. So being able to get that meterage does still make a mental difference, and I mean, they're also going to have now quick little break to give themselves some time to think about what they can do going into this 5th map to try and take it to a 6th.
I'm not crazy, Malin. I've just been in a very bad mood for 40 years. 40 years.
Carpe diem. Carpe diem.
Well, Willow, we wouldn't have it any other way. We're going to a map 5, but this one's a little weird because Chillionaires, if they win this one, they're just tied up. But,
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to if they want to punch their ticket directly to the upper finals. And Metagirls, they're going to look to just close it out on this escort map.
You want to hear something scary?
What's something scary?
It is possible that we see another draw on escort.
Don't say that. I don't know the last time I saw a map 6 in a first
Let alone
to
a
3.
map
I don't,
7.
Don't make me think about the possibility of a map. Don't go there, Willow. I don't.
Like,
Good.
I'm sure our players
thoughts,
don't want to
good
either. There's a
thoughts,
bunch
okay,
from like
please.
Green Fortnite and the Drainers who are like, we've got OWCS, we need to be going soon. And yet Metagirls and Chillionaires, they want to drag this on as long as possible. So as long as we can get over to our escort map as soon as possible, I think we will be okay. But we do need to kind of get a shimmy on here. Otherwise, I think there's going to be some players who just have to forfeit outright.
I think the players on Green Fortnite and Chengdu are rooting for Metagirls, like, please just finish this out, please. And fortunately for them, we are going to Shambali, which, I mean, the last time we saw this one, all of it we saw was the first point. So this map can be over rather quick. And it is interesting to see this one picked out here by Metagirls because they did win it out earlier.
Yeah, we know this is a map that they're comfortable on, and I think even if they're not running their so-called favorite composition, the little ace up their sleeve, it's still going to be a map that, because they do like that Sigma poke, they will have practiced quite a lot. So Shambali Monastery being their escort map of choice is going to make sense. For Chillionaires, deciding to take them there, I think that's a really interesting way of approaching this, because I think fundamentally you'd probably rather go to somewhere like Route 66 or perhaps somewhere with a little bit more opportunity for you to run compositions that you know your opponent won't quite be so happy on. Like, if you really wanted to, you could just go to Rialto and fully force the Orisa mirror. But nevertheless, here we are, back at Shambali, back at the Monastery. The Metagirls are going to be starting out on that Ramatri yet again. Amelia back in on that May. Chillionaires are going to have to come up with a good response to this very quickly. If Kuna can find a good headshot, that's something, but we saw how effective Metagirls were at just being able to hold this at first last time we saw them, so a real pain point that Chillionaires are going to have to address.
Yeah, Kuna looking for it. I mean, Amelia, watch your head. It's Kuna almost just finding a free opening outright, but they are looking instead towards Hattori, who's taking a lot of damage, and I mean, there it is, Kuna. I mean, Amelia not careful enough and will go down, but Iridescent trading it back will mean that Chillionaire is going to have to take a quick reset, but with the May gone, that should let Chillionaires back into this rather quickly, but they're not even going to need the reset. Monarch able to survive as Eevee comes back into this, so they should now just have the advantage as Iridescent low, but Jeep not confident enough to chase that one out. But now with the Ramatra off the cart, I mean, it should just be a matter of time here for Chillionaires. But I mean, the thing is, with these spawn holds, the goal is kind of just to buy time, and I mean, Metagirls have done just that.
It's kind of buy time, but also you don't want to be staggering in the way that they are. Like, you've gotten yourself a little bit of distance, but chances are with your May and your Cassidy still coming back, you're not going to be able to confidently hold the archway, as Chillionaires are already going to be able to position themselves to deny that space from you. Eevee already close to the amplification matrix as well, means that they just get to fire down main, and this could be first capped out because of it.
Yeah, I mean, Hattori just already so low, maybe a little too far up, but I mean, where did Monarch's health go? It's just all gone. But I mean, Kuna still has a chance to be deadly with this window, but going to have to fall off of that one and will actually go down as well, as Chillionaires sent back to their spawn. The staggers from Metagirls won't even matter, as now they're the one getting the staggers, but Hattori does have to be a little careful.
It was a really nice wall from Amelia to make sure that the amplification matrix was like blocked without also being able to shoot through the amp matrix to kill the wall. You were still doing a standard amount of damage to it, but also it was blocking all the damage that would have been able to go through and keeping Monarch in when they didn't want to be. It's really difficult to get that positioning just perfect, but trust Amelia to do it. Their May play has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's now the Blizzard coming on out, but the only person in it is a Golden Orisa. Iridescent able to trade it back with the high noon, but now Santix going down. Who will heal Hattori? And the answer is, I mean, well, you do have the beat if you believe hard enough, but I mean, honestly, it might be better to just reset, but Iridescent just finding these heads is going to bring it back for Metagirls, with Hattori now able to walk forward with this Annihilation, but again, does have to be a little bit careful. If you go down, that could let Chillionaires back into it, but 1 minute, and realistically, I mean, Chillionaires are going to have to win 2 fights. Even if they win 1, I mean, another fight at the end of the point will be an option available for Metagirls.
Metagirls did a really good job of acknowledging that they've got both the Sound Barrier and the Annihilation and the Choke Point, so they can just play really slow, use ultimates if they need to, layer them in. Iridescent finding heads like we know that they can is just cherry on the top realistically, because Chillionaires didn't have the advantage in that despite having the picks.
And now Kuna, I mean, trying to make use of that window, but it was too far up, and to be able to make use of it has to give her life for it. And I mean, that is a crucial error there for Chillionaires. 27 seconds. I mean, they're gonna have to stagger on back. And there's one ult that I'm seeing there. It's going to have to be Kuna making excellent value out of nothing with this overclock.
Almost died as well, would have been staggered out for the last few seconds to be able to touch back on the point, meaning that you wouldn't be able to set this overclock up effectively at all. Santix is back on the Moira and has been for the last couple of fights, so the Coalescence is near, but not quite there yet. If Metagirls can just sustain, they'll be okay. Iridescent very low though.
Yeah, Iridescent almost goes down. That could have been the way to go. And I mean, stop peeking the overclock. You're almost giving Chillionaires a way back into this, but now Iridescent with the high noon to zone kind of allow them to hold this choke, and now they've got the Cole ready to go. Sheep too far in, getting beamed by both the Mei and the Moira, but will be able to survive with the power of the fiery beat. And Amelia will be the first one to go down. Kuna doesn't even need the overclock to get all of these rail kills. And just with Sheep going down, Chillionaires win another fight, but I mean, Metagirls probably going to be able to get another one if Santix doesn't get staggered here, but I mean, if they go down, that should be Chillionaires now capping because of that.
Yeah, it's a sigh of relief for Kuna as well, because if you die in that duel, there is no hearing the end of it. Hattori is going to be coming back on this Mauga, and the
Amelia investing the Blizzard.
Yeah,
they don't touch Willow. Oh, I was so sure. I was like, the Moira's down. Surely you don't touch this. And not only do they touch it, they use the Blizzard, and then no one can stay on the point. That is...
Oops, the objective.
Oops. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more is...
Because, like, you can't sit in the Blizzard, right?
No.
Especially with Monarch back on the Ramattra, you don't have the gold to be able to just ignore it entirely, or even something like the Javelin Spin to eat it if you really felt confident doing so. And Amelia's Blizzards, they've been good consistently. The Mei play overall has been stellar, so it's a really rough position to find yourself in, but not even having anyone who can, like, be prepared to, like, touch and then get out again. Really unlucky, an unfortunate position to find yourself in, and it does mean that, yet again, we won't be seeing anything other than first on Shambali.
Well, I mean, that's just how the map plays, but I mean, I think you're, if you're Chillionaires, I think you might kind of feel like kicking yourselves a little bit, but honestly, that was just a really nice Blizzard. Even if the C9 doesn't happen, I mean, Monarch was 1 HP frozen up and was just going to die, so I mean, that was still probably just going to be Metagirl's fight, but Chillionaires, they know their win condition, they're playing close to spawn, they're going to try and get as many fights as possible, and this is still very winnable for them.
I like this little close hold, this little bit of cheekiness, because it means that you can try and catch someone out and play really close to the point. Hattori hovering on the Reinhardt yet again. It's going to be fast.
Okay. Wait, that's a ridiculous pin. Now Monarch away from the team, low HP, but Kuna is able to get some picks to kind of bail the Chillionaires out here. And I mean, that's what you need. That's what you need to start. You need to burn a lot of time here to make sure that Metagirls can't get back into this.
If your goal is just to, like, break a close hold, then starting out in this Rhine Junkrat, where you can just be so aggressive and force so much space, is a huge advantage, and we can see Metagirls probably are going to be able to start to get the cart rolling off the back of it, as just slowly they're picking everyone off. But nevertheless, sheep stalling out for as long as possible.
Yeah, but now it's a little awkward because now we're past this starting area where your only goal is to break that, and we Metagirls still have Anna, Rhine, Junkrat, so it will be interesting to see how they play this.
There's Nano and Shatter though, right?
Yeah,
If
they do have the
Chillionaires
ult.
don't see Hattori, you just Nano Shatter, kill everyone. They just need a few more. It's gonna build up. It's gonna build up passively. Here it comes.
Oh no. Oh no. Going for the pin. Oh my. Monarch's already 1 HP, even without the Shatter. Seika goes down, but I mean, without your tank, Chillionaires are in trouble. But I mean, that's a nice pick there from Eevee. They could still maybe fight this, but I mean, Hattori wants it, and the Shatter gets both supports down. The cart is rolling on up. 3 players on to get it fast, and it's going to be a very difficult objective to touch. They've got the high noon on both sides, but I mean, Iridescent pops it first to get the zoning, and
the
there's C9 again, a lovely boop, and Metagirls say, we've had enough. 6 maps, not today. And they win it 3-1 and advance themselves to the upper finals. Or
That was
grand finals, not upper.
And all the finals, every single final
Every
they could
single
want to be
one.
in, they've now been in. And what more could you want from this team? Maybe a little bit of a slightly shorter series, but they're playing the meta game, right? If you force your opponents to be in OWCS, they have to forfeit, and then you get an easier time of it. This is going to be our last match of the upper bracket today. We'll be going over to the lower bracket. We're just gonna quickly hop away. I don't know if the current lower bracket match is already ongoing to help those players get on with it a little bit, but that is a 3-1. We're gonna quickly go to a break because I think we are on a bit of a tight schedule, but we'll see you all again shortly.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Fifi. This is Willow, and it appears unfortunately that we won't be able to stream the first lower bracket game of EU because they had to start to make sure that their players wouldn't miss OWCS matches later. So that one's underway. Will be interesting to see what the result is at a later point, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. I was really excited to see those teams.
Yeah.
I know some of the players on them, and it's like, man, not getting to see how that actually pans out, especially with them being like Draenors versus Green Fortnite, two teams that we were kind of expecting to see in the grand finals. One of them is just going to be straight up eliminated now, and we're not even going to get to see which one. I'm a little bit sad, but at the end of the day, OWCS is on. You got to get that bag, and those players, they want to be able to make sure that they're competing properly. So. Unlucky. I don't know if any of them are streaming, but oh well. We'll catch them another time later on. There's going to be NA later on today. Make sure you stick around for that. That's going to be in about an hour and a half. But from us here, that's therefore everything. So, anything you want to say, Fifi?
Thanks for watching. Check out NA games. I'll be playing, doing awesome things, obviously. Also, lots of other incredibly talented players, so make sure you don't miss it.
We'll see you all in a bit.